All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics of Local America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Y'all know if it is Friday, y'all know it is time for All Politics of Local. But more importantly, if it is the fourth Friday, y'all know it's time for the disciples. So
Disciples.
we're gonna get started with them first, and then of course we're gonna have some other things that are gonna come up tonight that are gonna be a real engaging conversation. So I'm one of your hosts. Of course, my name is Ed Riley, and so I'm gonna shoot it over to Brother Zaid and let him give you the rundown.
Brother Ed is modest. Brother Ed is our founder and just had a big B day. We want to shout him out live in public, right? And give the brother some love because he deserves it, right? But on the rundown, what we got in store for you today is another hard-hitting heavyweight show. After our comrades in faith, disciples give you the rundown, their rundown, at 7 o'clock. Elected revolutionary. New York Councilman Charles Barron of East New York, Brooklyn. Not that East New York you see on Channel 2, the real East New York, right? Charles Barron, a veteran of the original Black Panther Party. Charles Barron, no author. We're going to talk about his book. He's got a book out. It's Kwanzaa season. You want to give a book to a young person? We got some weapons for you, right? Charles Barron, who just drafted a resolution, the New York City Council, as a gesture of people's solidarity to condemn and end the 60-year-old blockade against Cuba. He'll be joined by Gail Walker, IFCO Pastors for Peace, a legendary international solidarity bearer in her own right. Gail has been working with Cuba solidarity activists in a number of other cities that have already also done resolutions calling for the end of the embargo. So they're going to talk about that, and that's going to be a powerful segment. And just behind them, last week we were in court for Mumia Abu Jamal, and some profoundly healthy things happened in support of Mumia on the way to that hearing, including a beautiful people's mural in West Philadelphia, right? That lifts up Mumia and his humanity in a way that it has never happened for him in the city of his birth, his life, and his profound struggle against injustice and against captivity, his own captivity, right? We've got two people who worked with that. Brilliant young art curator activist, Therese Iriate, and Tova Fry, a longtime peace activist who's got a track record longer than mine, right? But it recently became a quite a presence in the People's Organization for Progress. So that's a powerful segment. Then we'll wind up, of course, with the hip hop wind up with our own DJ Rhino, the greatest DJ in the universe. So that's the run of the show, and we're about ready to get at it.
Indeed. So let us go ahead and move that over to Brother Ali and Brother Abdul Haq. Y'all show
my younger brother Abdul Haq to get us started.
Man, thank you, Brother Ed. All praise due to Allah. Thank you, Brother Zaid. Of course, Pastor Ali. Once again, my name is Brother Abdul Haq Muhammad. I'm the student minister of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for the Muhammad Mosque of Islam, number 25, which is located in the city of Newark, New Jersey. And as a student and minister of him, I'm always deeply grateful and highly honored for this most gracious opportunity. Again, thank you, Brother Ed, for your consistency and your dedication. We really appreciate you and we really love you. Happy belated birthday. We pray that Almighty God, Allah, the Creator, bless you with many more. We love you and your family. You as well, Brother Zaid. We appreciate you. I don't see, our woman of God, Reverend Roundtree, Councilwoman Roundtree. But, God willing, she'll join us soon. But I want to, my brother really don't need an introduction, but I'll pass it over to Pastor Ali.
Well, grace and peace, family. It's good to be alive. It's good as we wind down another year. I am currently grieving the passing of one of our matriarchs in my family, my aunt. She was 89 years old, and we're waiting for her homeborn celebration. And the family is dealing with that. But in the midst of it all, through every up and down, I still believe that the best days are in front of us in spite of what's going on. I'm glad to be here. The last month of 2022, still here, still making it, and still surviving. And I give God all the glory for that. So I turn it back over to Haqq Muhammad.
Thank you, Pastor Ali. I really appreciate you. I received a call from Sister Donna. We know she's very pivotal to all politics, is local. And she wanted to talk about or know my thoughts as it relates to Black male, in particular, Black people in general, suicide, coming off the heels of the suicide by the brother Stefan Twitch Boss, the dancer who rose to fame on So You Think You Can Dance, who also rose to fame as the DJ for Ellen DeGeneres show. So, you know, it has sparked another discussion as it relates to Black people and suicide. We know many people in Black America and all over the world was touched and was impacted by this young talented soul, and his death has impacted many in the way that he passed. You know, a video had been circulating around social media showing him, you know, very jovial, very happy, dancing with his family. And then the news broke that, you know, he had died of suicide. So it took, you know, the world by shock, seeing how happy he always appeared to be, how jovial, how enthusiastic he always appeared to be. You couldn't really tell that anything was wrong, like he was in any mental or psychological turmoil. And we see that often a lot. So, you know, I just pass it on to Brother Ali or Brother Ed, Brother Zaid, to really get the discussion started as it relates to Black people and suicide, you know, in this country, and how it has risen over the past several years. I see Reverend Rountree, who definitely does a lot of work in the Black community, you know, in the tri-state area. So, you know, I know she has a lot to say in this particular subject. But, you know, I'll pass it off to you, Pastor Ali or Zaid.
And I just preached about it this past Sunday. I dealt with it, dealing with mental illness. I currently have a granddaughter that's in treatment right now at 24 years old, dealing with the mind and mental illness. We know in the Bible, many wanted to commit suicide. Elijah wanted to commit suicide. Moses wanted to commit suicide. And sometimes when you deal with challenges of life, you're overwhelmed by mental illness. I know when they talk about medication and stuff like that, I know I deal with anxiety, get anxious, and I pray about it and everything. But it came out of nowhere. It comes out of, I guess, an overload of the mind or whatever the case may be. But at 64, there are times when I have to sit down and really pray, really go through the process of my faith and understand that everybody is not as strong or may not be as in the faith as the rest of us are. And suicide and mental illness with this young brother, he was always happy. And I think you have to be careful when you see a person always happy and never deal with the trials of life. Many affliction of the righteous, the Bible said, but the Lord said, I will deliver you out of them all. I'm a firm believer that I teach every day. It's not going to be Sunday. It's not going to be up down. Sometimes you got to go like the weather. You got to go with the clouds. You got to go with the weather. The winds are beating against my house right now. Been beating for the last 2 days. It's not a sunny day. It's a cold day. My radiators are going through, but you adjust. You make adjustments. You go through the process. And we know that mental health is something that's very taboo in the Black community. You know, back then we used to just call it their little off or their little touch. But we see mental illness raging in our community. It's not just at Penn Station. It's not just downtown. It's not just on some of our back streets. There are people in our Ivy halls of education with mental illness. There are people that are practicing law with mental illness. There are people that are performing surgeries with mental illness. So we realize that mental illness is very prevalent. It's something that has to be talked about, something that has to be dealt with, and something that can be handled if it's handled correctly.
Thank you, Pastor Ali.
Yeah, I wanted to. She was chiming in. I wanted to greet our sister, but I think she's may have some connection issues. She was trying to come in. Let me say several things. One, I'm glad the conversation is continuing. And what do I mean by that? Now, in our last show, we had a very moving segment on the issue of black men in mental health, right? And our special guest was William Barbie, a brother who actually who came out of what he does as an entrepreneur and actually made a film that told his own story about going through a mental health crisis as a young black man that had suicidal dimensions. One of the things that we should say is this too, and it's twofold, but on two sides of the same coin. That not only is mental health a real problem for us in our community, and then not only do we not talk about it or address it as we should, as Pastor just said, but suicide is also a problem in our community, right? I lost a stepbrother to suicide, right? Saw him just a few days before. I had no idea that he was in this space that he was in. And I have two daughters who are social workers, and one just put something in my head just a little while ago. We were talking about suicide, right? Is that when people tend to act, they're either at a very low point in what they're going through, or actually sometimes they commit it at a high point, thinking that this is the best it's going to be, so I might as well end it now, right? And that's a dimension that I had not heard before, but it then becomes a way to explain why we see people who we think are doing well, and in their appearance of wellness, they go and take themselves out of here as well. They may not have been as well as we thought they were, right? So it's a profound thing. And we used to say years ago, black people don't do that. Well, not only does it happen, it happens more often than not with our young. And this young brother going out of here, he's a young man.
40 years old.
It's an example of that. It happens with our young.
Your stepbrother.
So we need to talk about it. One of the things that I do, and the particular wellness angle of the walk that I'm on, right, is that I'm trying to figure out how to inspire those of us, and I'm talking about black men, coming back to black men who have been through certain paces, or who have that exceptional capacity to teach and share, right, to consider going into the mental health profession. Social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, there are not enough of us in the field, period. Well, there are a lot of us who have a lot of problems, but we're definitely not represented the way we should be in the field, given the scope of oppression and depression that our people are facing. So I hope this sparks a mind that's on the fence about, a young mind that's on the fence about what they want to do with their professional lives. If there's something to consider, yeah, we need y'all to consider that. Our sisters are carrying that load very heavily in a very disproportionate way. Our daughters are really carrying that load, and we need more brothers in the field to help brothers in the field, because a lot of us are carrying some serious baggage that needs attention. So I'll start.
Yes, you're correct. Your stepbrother is my classmate. We grew up.
That's right. You know him. You knew Arnold.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
And when I think about him, I think about that time where he was so always quiet, but always at the top. And I thought about, I was watching a documentary with my wife, with the Prince and Tyler Perry and the wife Meghan Markle. And Tyler said something. He said when he went through his dark period, when he went through his depression, when he was sleeping in his car and stuff like that, his word of advice was, if he hadn't got through that period, he wouldn't have got to the period he's in now.
Oh my God.
And he was encouraging people, get past that period, go through that period, process that period, because I've always believed there's something greater ahead. But you won't know it if you give up in the midst of that. I think the young brother from Twitch, I think he felt like he had reached the top of his game, so to speak. I don't know what his mind was going through when he took the bullets and took the pistol. He had his wife, he had his children and everything. And it's still, you would have thought he was on top of the world. And many times, just like your stepbrother, we'd have thought he was on top of the world, had a good job, was doing well.
Yeah,
all these
just get
different
himself back
things.
together. That's right.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, out of that I can say the blue sky, so to speak, when he left us. Out of all the people, if you had asked me to put money up, who I thought would commit suicide, he would have been at the bottom of the rim. I would have lost my money that day.
Because depression hides your hurt from the world. That's coming from
My
your
Lord.
That's right. Our sisters joined us. You hear us, my queen. We need you to share your thoughts. You have been in the field with you are one of our armies of one out in the field on the clergy front trying to take care of our weary and our wounded. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I didn't catch the first part of it, but based on what first, good evening, assalamu alaikum.
Islam, good to see you. Council,
peace and blessings to my brothers in the movement, my comrades. Let me be very clear. There's so many things that we don't understand about the mind, which we try to figure it out. We try. The biggest concern I have is the couch. You know, we have to let people talk. We really, and we have to hear them, not just listen. A lot of times people are telling us and we don't even hear them. We listen, but we don't hear them. That's one aspect. The other aspect is when you're not there and you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, what's on the front, it can be a whole lot. Just like Pastor Ali said, you see, you would think he was on top of the world. You would think that all was well because of lifestyle, fun, fame, and fortune, and a beautiful family. I know some folks personally with beautiful families on the front and catching hell in their home. And the men are going through. I've literally had people talk to me that I just listen until they talk their own self off the ledge. But it's a matter of them reaching out and there's so much going on in society today. Then on the flip side of that, if it's not mental, it's something else. And we don't know. I was telling some people in my office, not even 2 weeks ago, there's such a thin line between sanity and insanity. And no one knows another person's breaking point until they're broke. And sometimes it might be just too late. In this case, we don't know what the breaking point was, but I have people that I've sat down with. I know you have, Pastor Ali. I'm sure you have, Baba. And all of us have sat with people and discovered in the midst of their crisis, just from listening to them, that must have been their breaking point. And nobody realized or tried to say, you know what? Let me just listen. Don't offer no advice. Don't tell them what they should be doing, how they should be happy, how things are great, what lies ahead. When you're in the midst of a crisis, the last thing you're thinking about is what's ahead. You're thinking about the right now. What am I going through right now? And based on the level of the pressure that has pushed you to that point, we deal with it every day. Children that have not even developed are out here taking, self-medicating, I'll put it, and waking up the next day not even knowing they have hurt someone or killed someone. Listen, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going all over with this. They have something that they call, back in the day, they used to call it angel dust, I think, Pastor Ali.
Yeah, dust. Yeah, dust. I smoke.
Okay, today they call it wet, I think.
Yeah,
nonetheless, something is wrong with your mind already if you're deciding to smoke something that they put into dead people. Something was wrong already. Forget smoking that. Something is wrong that would make you want to go that far. So we have all types of levels of depression, insanity, mental illness, substance abuse. And at any given time, your breaking point, nobody's around for you to stop for that split second that you decide either take your life, somebody else's life, or because depression has made that happen as well. So being on the front line with a lot of this, it's a multiplicity of areas, a multiplicity of issues, a multiplicity of people that they used to say it's a thin line between love and hate. There's a thinner line between sanity and something can happen to your child and you lose your mind. And coming back, you're so far out in the ocean you can't even see the land.
Mm.
Something
Wow.
can happen in your relationship. Your wife, you could find out something about your wife, and to save yourself the embarrassment because you can't take it, that could be your breaking point. Some people deal with issues not just on their job.
Mm.
So when you start dealing with this issue, it's such a diverse, so many issues, such a good afternoon, good evening, beautiful woman, first lady of this generation, Belina Ali, with your beautiful self. All right, back to the topic. So it's a hard issue, Brother Riley, to just pinpoint this and that and what we think and what it should be. The truth is, every case is individual and independent. And since we are not mind readers like they have on the X-Men, we can't get into folks' heads. They can tell us anything. But if they talk long enough, they might help themselves. But if they don't get that opportunity, something could happen and they don't even think about it. It's over.
That's right. That's right, Reverend Roundtree. Brother Ed, any thoughts on this? Twitch in particular, or just in general, black people and mental health, particularly suicide?
Well, I mean, clearly, man, I think that, for most black people in America, we all are dealing with some very difficult times. I mean, and we had this conversation with the mayor. He said that, um, you know, in 2020, he said that, and I agree with him when he said that none of us really knew, uh, what was going to be, the psychological damage that we all would be dealing with 2 years later, of coming out of this thing, having to stay in the house, having to stay, with certain people, um, you know, uh, in some relationships you probably didn't want to be in the beginning, and then 2 years later, all of us would have to deal with who we are, and I know that someone looking at a brother Twitch would probably look at him and say, here's a brother who had everything going on and had everything going for him. But again, man, nobody really knows what we all are dealing with, right? All of
That's
us are
right.
things. The
What
Bible says that in this life you're gonna have some trouble,
trials and tribulations.
right? So we
Many
all,
are the afflictions of the righteous, but they forget that God will deliver us out of them all because we're supposed to be afflicted. This is life.
right.
But based on your spiritual connection, I mean, me and Minister um, Abdul Haq Muhammad and Pastor Ali and you, we might be so spiritually connected that we try to pray our way through, or whatever the case might be. I keep hearing you say a person like Twitch who had everything going for himself. What determines having everything going for yourself? Because you
What?
have fame? Because you have? I'm just asking the question. I'm not saying. I mean, what really determines an individual? We know he had fame. We know he had fortune, beautiful children, wonderful, beautiful from what we see. But what determines what makes us think just because we see that, because society has deemed it, that because a person has everything and they're not poverty stricken, they're not on the corner panhandling, they're not, as far as we know from what we see, substance abusers. I mean, what? Mental illness is so real
Mhm.
that you can be on top of the world and be in a ditch.
I think you said a key word, Councilwoman. I think that the challenge is I'm, doing my clinical training. I think the challenge is that we don't go through the process. We don't
Absolutely.
we don't go through the process. We always try to rush people through. That's always one of the challenges of being a faith believer
Absolutely.
in the Protestant church. We think we can lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. The scriptures does not say they're gonna recover right then. The scripture does not say because you laid hands, all of a
Woo,
sudden
Lord, you better talk.
in their right mind. That man that was at the graveyard had been sick a long time.
Long time.
And when Jesus came on the scene with him, he talked with him. He was full of legion, said, "What's your name?" He didn't even speak out. The demon spoke out. Said,
That's
"I'm
right.
legion." It's many of us. After a while, they say he was clothed in his right mind.
That's
Now
right.
the time it came. Because what's use
Right.
to sweeping the house if you don't fill up with nothing? His
Come
assignment,
on.
he wanted to go with Jesus. Jesus
Come
said, "No,
on.
you got to go back to where you come from so they can see. That'll be a better witness." But he had to sit there and process. We don't know what he went through. We don't
That's
know
right.
what, as it was brought up. You go home and you got a letter at home. Your whole family then left.
Mm-hmm.
And you got a cake for the birthday in your hand.
Yeah.
You go to work and you laid off.
Mm-hmm.
And your child's graduation is coming up. You
Yep.
go to the doctor, you find out your body is full of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you lay hands on yourself, you anoint your head with oil, and the cancer gets worse.
Gets worse. Come on,
How do
sir.
you process that? You know, with my health issues, I believe all the time I'm healed because I understand Rapha, the healing, means made whole. In actuality, does not mean I'm cured. It means I can function.
Mm-hmm.
It
And
means
many people,
psychologically you're conditioned to
right,
help you. We are bodies, and that's another thing people don't understand. Our bodies are conditioned to heal themselves based on what we put in it, how we think. Some things we just not going to be. And those mental, I tell people all the time, when you get depressed, you taking yourself out slower when you're ill.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got a heart problem and you worried about the heart problem, what you're doing is putting more pressure on the heart.
Well,
how
you're
well
right.
I know.
You're right. I mean, that's why the scripture says, "Cast all your care on
On him.
him, because he cares."
Okay, you better preach,
Right?
Brother Ed Riley.
Because that whole worrying is a negative form of
It's a
meditation.
negative. It's negative. They say laughter's good for the soul. It's like medicine. But you tell that to somebody who just passed out. He just said comes from the hospital. Listen, and or come from the doctor and get a bad report.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can't go home and say, "Well, you know what? I'm just waiting on the Lord." Listen, when COVID hit, I had people telling me I'm going to plead the blood. I told a minister that people were telling me they was going to plead the blood. She told me, Melissa, I ain't going to call her name. She told me, she's in Houston now. She said, "Would you please go tell them people to plead the blood and go somewhere and sit down before they kill somebody else with COVID?" Because some people just didn't, and I'm not questioning someone's faith. You got to have faith. You got to be positive, but you also have to use wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're not thinking and functioning properly psychologically, wisdom got to find its way in.
Mm-hmm.
If it does,
And you have to
you know.
discern. You have to discern because you take, for instance, we can say what we want to. I know just from my faith place where I pastor at, COVID has changed our mindset.
I know it has.
COVID has changed the message. Over 60% of my ministry have had COVID at one time or another. And as I observe the people that have had COVID, some of them act like they didn't have it. So they go on the other deep end. Others are trying to process it. And then not only that, those in the faith world, church world, look how many people we lost to COVID. Let's look at this commercial, Brother
Dropping
Ed
like flies.
and Roundtree. Let's look at the commercial when the presiding bishop of the Church of God in Christ comes on.
Woo!
And it comes on and say, "I've lost 60 bishops and my mother to COVID."
That's right.
That's his opening statement.
60.
I've lost 60 bishops
60,
and my mama to COVID.
60.
His
One
daughter is
it was
a
like
gospel
10.
star. Wife is a gospel star. He's the presiding bishop of that grand old Church of God in Christ.
Yes.
His opening remarks is, because of COVID, I've lost 60 bishops
And my mother.
Wow.
You know, I just want to, if I could.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, again, you know, the Honorable Muhammad taught us that if you don't know what was, you can't know what is, and that you'll be ill prepared for what is yet to come.
Yes, Lord.
So I always try to look at things from a historical perspective, because history is cyclical in nature, and if we don't learn the lessons of history, then we're doomed to repeat them. And I think that when you talk about Black people, mental health in America, you have to look at the totality of our circumstance.
Yes.
Because, you know, in a nation, we believe in the resurrection of the dead. The resurrection of the dead, not in physical resurrection, but in mental resurrection. And we believe that the so-called Negroes are most in need of mental resurrection. Therefore, we will be resurrected first. Because we know that slavery, psychologically, mentally, rendered us dead. Because we were robbed of the knowledge of ourselves,
My Lord.
Culture, the knowledge of our God, the knowledge of our history, the knowledge of our language. We was robbed of the knowledge and the power of our own being. We were not allowed for 300 years to read the word of God or to have a sincere relationship with God, our creator, because those that deprived us of justice and freedom, they stood in the place of our creator and had us to bow down to them, to worship them, to fear them. This didn't happen a year or 2 years. You're talking about generations this happened to a people. And the social scientists talk about what they call epigenetics, where they say that trauma can be passed down generationally. Yes. So you have to look at Black folks in America, historically, what has happened to us, where there was a break in our greatness and we went through a form of tyranny and oppression like no people had ever gone through before us. And after being so-called freed, you talk about Reconstruction. At what period were we able to get, I'm just using this word because it's popular, but at what period did we get any form of therapy where we were healed of the psychological and the mental traumas that we had suffered from being under oppression and tyranny and colonialism and imperialism? What services were rendered to us as a people that once we were freed from that condition, we can now be psychologically taught and educated? Because right after the plantation, you're talking about Jim Crow, you're talking about Reconstruction. And then when we did make progress, we saw the worst of white folks begin to manifest.
That's right.
So at what period and point in our sojourn in America were we able to receive any form of collective therapy for us as a people, where we can be healed psychologically and mentally of the burden of being robbed of the knowledge of ourselves, taught to hate our skin color, the texture of our hair, the shape of our nose, the thickness of our lips? We were taught that our skin color was a curse.
That's right.
We were taught that the broadness of our nose, that we were deformed, that we were disfigured. And this is what we were told and taught for generations. Then we were taught that God was white. What would that do psychologically to a people?
And the only way to be all right is to serve your white master.
One of our great historians said that when your God and Savior looks like your master and your enslaver, then you become the principal agent in your own destruction. So we talk about Twitch, we talk about so many other young Black people that have committed suicide and are committing suicide. We have to look at the totality of the circumstance of Black people being in this country.
Oppression
and the type of psychological death that we had undergone as a people. You know, I say this, that when the time of colonization of the, they wanted to give us, these societies, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, many, proposed that we go somewhere else.
Right.
So when we did get Liberia, okay, we went to Liberia, and what they discovered was that being there in another place, it did not change what we had undergone. So what they discovered is that we were doing to each other there what white folks had done to us here. Because we had suffered from what is called internalized oppression.
That's right.
When the oppressed group begins to do to each other what the oppressor had done to them. So you changed our demographics, but you didn't change our mindset. You did not heal us psychologically. So no matter where you put us, whether it was Liberia, the Dominican Republic, you took us back to Africa. Not being able to be psychologically taught and raised out of that level of death, all we did was do to each other what they had done to us.
That's right. That's right.
So, I mean, there's so much to say on this topic, but it's a very deep and broad topic when you talk about mental health in Black people in America.
That's what I said.
And what brought us all together on this walk, right? The thing that brought us all together on this walk is trying to deal with the violence within our community.
Yes.
You cannot talk about understanding that without addressing what Haqq just lifted up.
And let me say this. We know, I've quoted it many times, the minister have taught us that Thomas Jefferson said this: I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just and that his justice cannot sleep lying down forever. So the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan have taught us that justice is what gives the human being equilibrium or balance. And he said, if you look at the symbol of justice, it's a woman holding scales. Because the scales is what gives us balance. But when a people have suffered injustice, then the scales are tipped. Psychologically, chemically. And you'll begin to see that people do things that in a right mind they would never do.
That's right.
So when you see the psychological imbalance that we as a people suffer from, a lot of it is due to the injustice that we have experienced in this country.
The oppression.
We don't have the balance or the equilibrium that we need because our grievances have not been addressed. Collectively as a people or individually as human beings. When you look at what we go through on a daily basis as it relates to racism, the fratricide, us harming us, and you don't get an answer to why, that does something to your psyche because the human being needs definition. And when you can't answer the question why or what, then you begin to lose hope. And the minister taught us that hopelessness is the mother of violence. That hopelessness is the mother of violence. So when you talk about America, the CDC said that in 2001, America reached a staggering record for drug overdoses with 107,000 people. See, all of these are factors when you look at what's happening to the human being, and I'm talking about us as a people. Then you got to look at the pressure that this world is putting on us as human beings. So the minister said that every physical organism has a spiritual counterpart. He said the atmosphere exerts a certain amount of pressure on the human being. But the reason that we are not crushed is because we have an internal force that balances the external force out. That's the physical law. But what about spiritually? When the pressure of losing a loved one, the pressure of not loving how you look, the pressure of stress, when you don't have an internal force to help you balance that external force, then you become crushed. And unfortunately, many of us are missing that internal force, that spiritual force that will help us to balance the pressure that this world was made to put on us. So the Bible says in the book of Acts, the 14th chapter, the 22nd verse, that we through much tribulation must enter into the kingdom of God. We have this fanciful idea and notion about life that's incorrect. Life in the human being was made to struggle, to overcome difficulty and to face challenges.
Right.
But we were not made to do it alone. We have a creator that created us and deposited within us everything that we need. He's not an unjust God.
That's right.
And he knew that we were going to go through the vicissitudes of life. So he gave us a body that he made chemically fit.
That's right.
That produce certain hormones that help us go through trauma, stress, grief. But when you are overwhelmed with stress, then the mind becomes depleted and the body can't do what God created it to do. When your blood is toxic and you are not eating right, and you will be set with all type of bad habits, and you smoking and you drinking, and the blood becomes toxic.
Yes.
It is the blood of the body that washes over the cells of the brain. But if the blood is toxic, then as it courses through the body, it drops some of that toxicity on your physiological being.
That's right.
So you can't just talk about mental health without talking about physical health.
Physical health. That's what I said.
So
Yeah,
you talked about I'm sorry, you talked about Pastor Ali, COVID.
Mm-hmm.
The scientists have said that most people that died from COVID, they had comorbidity.
Mm-hmm.
They had other illnesses, so the COVID really exacerbated it.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the Black community, you know our community is sick. Obesity, cancer, hypertension,
sugar diabetes.
You know our community physically is sick. So the COVID only exacerbated the sickness that was already in us as a people. So you can't talk about just mental health without talking about physical health, because the brain, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have taught us, sits inside of a body. So you can't disconnect one from the other. And what you eat and what you put in your body, it also influences your mental health. So you're talking about, many of us have a corner store diet.
Right.
Chicken shack food.
Right.
Greasy. You know our diet is not what it could and should be. So you add that on top of stress, then that's a recipe for disaster. So we need to be holistically looked at and talked to about our condition as a people. We can't oversimplify this, because it will cause us to misdiagnose what we're looking at. There's many variables and nuances that's involved with Black people and suicide and what we are doing to one another. You can't remove the historical context or aspect of us. I'm gonna leave this alone. I'm gonna quote this and I'm gonna get out of here. Henry, in 1832, at the Virginia House of Delegates, Henry Berry said, "We have as far as possible closed every avenue by which light might enter the slave's mind."
That's right. That's
He
right.
said, if we can extinguish their capacity to see the light, they then would be reduced to the levels of the beasts of the field, and then we would be safe.
That's right. That's right.
See,
That's right.
I mean,
and Virginia was your top breeder state.
listen, we've been under some sick people,
Oppression,
some sick
and depression.
psychological people.
They had mental issues.
Yeah, you can't. You can't remove that aspect when you're talking about Black people in America and psychologically what we are undergoing and what we have undergone. You can't.
But minister,
You can't remove that. You know,
minister, you, Pastor Ali, Brother Ed, we are all saying the same exact thing, dealing with the spiritual, the physical, all of these, the multiplicity of issues. I like the way you put it. I like the way you broke it down, taking it back to where all of this originated. Self-esteem, being controlled, being governed by people that didn't care about us, that broke us down during slavery. Always, even today, oppression is real. Racism is real. Those issues are real. And as we stated, there's so many issues. How do you pinpoint and what determines specifically an individual doing what we were speaking of with Twitch? I appreciate you, Minister,
I can
because like I
say
said,
this, Reverend Roundtree, too. I just want to, and I know
you
brothers are
broke
able to
you broke it
appreciate this.
down, you took it back, you took it back. Um, and this is something that needs to be addressed, not just, I should say, on all politics or local. These are issues, and shame on us because our youth, our young people that are suffering, teenagers, children, they're suffering as a result of, I don't want to say of these generational curses, but generational issues.
Intergenerational trauma.
Now let me say this. Let me just quote, because I'm gonna quote James Baldwin, who said, "To be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a state of rage almost all the time."
Yes.
And we know that W.E.B. Du Bois talked about the Negro's double consciousness.
That's right.
And he said, "One ever feels his two-ness, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one dark body, whose dog strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder." So we are in toil. We've been in toil and turmoil emotionally and psychologically because of what we have gone through, being deprived of the essentials of life, to be able to not take care of yourself or your family. That does something to you psychologically. Poverty contributes to mental health. Violence contributes. All of these issues that we are beset with as a people. And when you look at us, again, when you look at us, you are looking at the product of a system that has never meant us well, and a system that by God's grace, we have been doing our best to navigate through as a people, to raise above the condition that we have been reduced to. So, Reverend Roundtree and Pastor Ali, you know, in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, it says, "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, wow, as a people, slavery had reduced us to almost dust because it robbed us of our purpose. So just as dust is a particle of matter that has no function, when we are a people become disconnected from our God, then we become functionless. And we need him again to breathe into us the breath of life, his knowledge, his wisdom, that we again can become a living soul. Because we are existing, but are we living? Because life is activity that's in accord with your nature. And when you are living outside of your nature, then you become unnatural in your behavior. So many of the things that we do to one another is not natural. The things that we do to ourselves is not natural. We talk about suicide, but many of us are participating in what I like to call functional suicide. We call it partying. You call it eating. You call it having a good time, but it's really suicide because we're killing ourselves. But we are functioning. We living. We go to the supermarket. We go to school. But the things that we are doing to ourselves, psychologically, socially, morally, it's really death.
Consuming.
So what Pastor Roundtree and Reverend Roundtree and Pastor Ali, what does the scripture called this world. It styles it as death. So it says in Proverbs 14:12, there's a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death.
The ways of death.
Then it says, if we were living, Jesus would not have to say, I've come, that you have life and more life abundantly. Because we've been living a life of death, because it says, and I don't want to go here too much, but I have to. In Romans 5:12, it says, by one man, sin entered into the world, and death by sin. So death hath passed upon all men, for all have sinned. So this is not a lifestyle, it's a death style that we as a people have been living, but hope is here.
Yes.
Hope is, Reverend Roundtree, you represent hope. Pastor Ali, Brother Ed, Brother Zaid, we represent hope. We are beacons of light for our people who may feel like, what am I going to do? I tell the brothers this all the time. According to the social scientists, they say that 2 people die every second. 107 people die every minute. 6,393 people die every hour. But if you didn't die a second ago or a minute ago or an hour ago, you should be grateful for the grace and the mercy of God.
That's right.
You don't have to be here.
That's right.
But if you are here, that's a sign that you have a chance.
That's right.
But only thing after this is death.
That's
and
right.
if you are not dead, there's nothing in life that's too hard that you as a human being can't bear.
That's
you
right.
just have to live long enough to
Come on
discover the life that's there.
it.
Life is there. You just haven't found it yet. It's light somewhere, but you got to hold on long enough to be able to grab and reach the light. It's there, but you are overwhelmed in your emotions. You are overwhelmed in the darkness of the situation. It doesn't mean light is not present. You just haven't discovered it yet. But if you hold on just a little longer, the light will come. It's there. You just haven't found it yet. But you gotta live. You gotta live, brothers and sisters. You gotta live in order to see the light that's present.
And Minister Haqq,
I didn't mean to preach.
You helping somebody. We need that. You're helping somebody. I know you're helping me. You're helping me. But Minister Haqq,
you know I'm like a Baptist preacher.
That's important.
Last week, Minister Haqq, this is a continuation of last week, and we talked about
that's how I framed it, Donna. That's right.
And we talked about mental health. And one of the things that Mr. Barbie said is that we have to be intentional. We may be the light for somebody. So when we walking and talking to people, and we say, "How you doing?" Really listen to how they're doing. And when somebody maybe is feeling despondent, or you notice something has changed in them, pay attention and see and take that extra minute or whatever it may be to see if we can change, perhaps, how they're feeling, if we can direct them somewhere, but we have to really be intentional in our actions.
Now, I want to say something to that, Sister Donna, because those people that ask how you doing need to be prepared for what comes after the how you doing. Because sometimes, I'm just saying, how you doing, you might get a whole list of stuff and then you walk away and didn't do nothing.
Right.
Because you couldn't handle the overwhelming response that they gave you about how they really were doing.
That's right.
So these things, as Minister has stated, and all of us are saying, it is a lot.
Right.
But those of us who are speaking to this and that are dealing with this need to be mindful that when you even greet a person, you don't know what they're going through. Just because you having a bad day, don't mean that the person you come into contact with has to wear it on your job. Try to figure out how you can have a better day.
That's right.
Or how somebody can help you have a better day.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to say when I worked at the front desk in the mayor's office, people was like, "Why you always in a good mood when you answer the phone?" Like, does that make sense? Because the person can't see me, and I can't see them. So when they call me, they call for some kind of help. So why am I going to, and then when they go off or they have a problem, I still got to take it because I don't know what they're going through.
That's right.
It don't matter what I'm going through right then. I got to deal with the person that called me. They called me. I got to deal with that. I got to deal with my heat is off, my water's off, my children don't have no food. I can't be worried about my heat right then because the person on the other end called me for help.
Right, that's right.
I got to say, ma'am, let me see what I can do to help you. And if you decide to cut somebody out, when they do that, I say, no, I can't help you until you calm down just a little bit. I'm going to help you. But you got to, I'm not going to say, if you keep on cussing, I'm going to hang up. You got people that respond like that. If you don't get it, you're not going to disrespect me. No, you talk to them in a way where they realize, okay, maybe I am going overboard. Let me just chill for a second to see what she going to do.
De-escalate.
And that's so important with individuals that are in any public position, period. Orbit or in the public eye, period. If you have to come into contact with people, and especially when we have homeless, when we have single mothers, African, and we're talking about the African American race, we're talking about our people. Because other folk make a way for theirs. One way or the other. And they still jumping off bridges and carrying on. They got their own sense. All they got to do is lose a job and they done jumped off a bridge. With AT&T, what was that phone company, Ali, that went out of business and all those people lost their pension? Folks,
MCI, maybe.
No, this was a few years back. I remember it was AT&T, some phone, some major company went out of business, and people have been there with major investments, and they didn't have time to think about it. They didn't stop and think, oh, maybe I can go somewhere else and do something different. These people had families and $2 million home mortgages to pay, and it was, they was just like, think about it, trauma, talk to somebody, I'm out,
And last week and after that, right here in Newark, and we heard Mayor Baraka prior to was talking about young Muslim teenage girls are dealing with right here in our schools. Grown ups
right here.
That got suppressed for several years
We
too.
know about that, and we got to address that, because I'm gonna tell you something.
And we just had Sister Dawn Hayes just post that she's dealing with it. So
she's dealing with it. She's dealing with racism in the school, and I'm gonna, they say because you're an elected official, I've heard this over the years. So I got to address anything that affects my community, and I just got to pay the cost, because I believe God is going to stand with us if we do right by the people. That's just me.
Right.
Whatever I got to say, what was done to that child was wrong. What was said to her was wrong, and because it wasn't addressed properly, will make these people think they can keep on doing it and do it again and again and again. The mayor is addressing it. The mayor's not going to allow these things, any injustices, to be done on any level, never mind just to our children, but to anybody. He is just not going to do it, and neither are we. So there's something coming up, and I'm going to be definitely addressing this, but that and shame on those who turn their head and don't stand up for a child that's been called out of her name, and an adult just passes it by, just disregards it.
Well, you know what? I was coming down Northfield Avenue. There was a big advertisement for a Jewish school. And I was thinking, how beautiful would it be if we could, maybe there was a week where
We can get another African
Jewish children could come to an African American school. African American children could go to a Jewish school, and then go to um, a Chinese school. Like we can all experience different cultures, and then come back and just see how much we have in common.
Yeah, that's nice. That's what was supposed to happen at the school.
Great idea.
Okay.
It's called global studies. I'm calling out.
Global. Wait a minute.
Studies.
Hold on.
That's supposed to
Hold
be
on,
the frame
Baba.
of reference.
Hold on. Baba.
Right? If that's not what happening, then somebody, principal, teachers, whoever's in charge, heads need to roll.
I'm lost. I don't know what happened. I didn't hear about this.
This is
Well,
brand new.
let me say this. The school is called, you just called the school, all right, where this took place. One of these incidents takes place. This is not the only incident in our school system. I am so sure. And if we don't speak up against those, how they say, speak truth to power, and make something happen regarding the people that do not address these issues with our young people. This girl had to go to therapy. She's all right now.
She's talking about the young lady who was told to take her.
It was not addressed where it happened.
No,
where she was told to take the headpiece off. Correct?
No, I'm talking about the girl who was called the gorilla.
No, we're talking. We didn't know about that.
We're
talking about a young woman who was told to take
over a period of several years.
Zaid, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We just got the tip of the iceberg from the mayor last week, but that was a breaking story about some behavior that has been happening at that school for several years.
Wow.
Several years.
And watch this. Let me tell y'all something.
Several years, some serious stuff was going down that had not been addressed.
And that's why they think. That's why I'm saying people think when they're in power, certain positions, if it's not addressed, they're going, listen, how come slavery was what it was? I'm just saying, if people are in positions and it's not addressed and we don't keep coming for them, because, of course, repetition is the mother of learning. So we're going to keep on repeating what we got to do. So you're going to learn you can't do this. It's going to be a learning behavior. Watch this. Don't do this. But we don't. We hit and we miss.
Yeah, what school is it? Principal Kafeli said, what school is it? I didn't hear this incident.
Global Studies. It's one of these charters.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't hear that incident. Wow. Now you saying, Brother Zaid, that it's been going on for several years unaddressed?
At this particular school.
And Minister Haqq, I just gave the example how beautiful it would be if there was such a place where we could go and everybody with different cultures can come together. And Zaid, you're saying this school is supposed to be that school.
No, that's what it's. That's the school here.
Well, see, I
don't know the backdrop of this particular school. I know the name of it is Global Studies. When Mayor Barack had Central, he found a way because there were different cultures in Central High School, and he found a way because you know what used to puzzle me when the Haitians were fighting the African American children, but they both African American. They think they're different. They both black, but you can't. So he found a way, because this happened in another municipality. But he found a way to bring these cultures together to all their flags hanging up in the school. To get them to realize we gonna respect each other. We gonna coexist together.
But the thing is, I know the thing about that. See, you can always tell your colonizer based on the language that you speak and the name that you go by. So when you talk about our quote-unquote Haitian brothers and sisters and quote-unquote African-American brothers and sisters, it's not that we are enemies, but those who colonized us were enemies. So our brothers and sisters in Haiti were colonized by the French, and we were colonized by the English. And we know that these two European nations did not get along. And when they colonized us, we adopted the hatred that they had for one another. Then we adopted that same hatred and that same inclination. So just as they didn't get along, the French and the English, then when they colonized us, those that they colonized would not get along, because we would now think that we are different. We are not different. We just speak a different language and have a different name because we had different colonizers. So we adopted the social and the psychological attitude of our colonizers. And again, if we are going to begin to produce and create peace, then we have to speak truth to power. It's not hate. It's not trying to degenerate or degrade another people's culture. But truth can withstand the most intense scrutiny and does not fear investigation, but rather invites exploration. So I'm not saying that we have to be mean or we have to be vindictive in the way that we give truth, but we have to give it, regardless of who it offends, because sometimes truth is offensive. If you are on the end that may be not so good of the truth that's being spoken. But again, as a people, we know we've been robbed of our complete identity. And until we begin to learn again who we are and who God created us to be, and not what our colonizer made us into, then we're going to continue to have these type of issues. Because we have to learn again, self first, then others. All of the great educational philosophers, and those particularly where we are from, had this edict: know thyself.
Know thyself.
Know thyself. That's the prerequisite of education, to know thyself. But we live in a society where we have been taught to learn about everybody else and not learn about ourselves. So King Leopold of Belgium said, teach the niggas to forget their heroes and adore only ours. And that's what we have always done. We've learned about this one and that one and the other, but we've never learned about who we are as a people, our rich, our vast history. I'll leave on this, Brother Zaid. You know, one of our great scholars said, when you start Black history from slavery, then everything else looks like progress.
My Lord.
So, you know, I mean, I'm just saying that we have to really address these issues. You know, we're going to be sincere and we're going to be serious. Otherwise, then, you know, we're going to get what we've been getting. But I'm happy to hear about this, Brothers Zaid and Reverend Roundtree.
I'm mad.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk about it.
We're going to talk about it.
What's going on with it. But I got another meeting at 7:30. So I got to prepare for that. I love you, Brother Ed. You know that.
Well, Minister Haqq, before we leave, this is the last show for the Disciples of the Year. What is your last word as we go into 2023?
No, I mean, we have off time. I want to say this first of all. Historically speaking, brothers and sisters, you know that we as a people, we used to refer to New Year's Day as Heartbreak Day. I want to tell us that we used to refer to New Year's Day as Heartbreak Day because the new year was representative that the little time that the slave master gave us for recreation, it was all but over. So we would be heartbroken because during this time, the slave master would be a little benevolent and let us do and have a little bit more freedom, and we can, you know, enjoy one another. But once that New Year's Day came, it's all over. So we would refer to this as Heartbreak Day. But, you know, I want to say to us that the scripture says, be ye not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. So brothers and sisters, let us do all that we can do to renew our mind and renew our spirit. And the way that we can do that is by seeking refuge in God. The Bible says, asking you shall be given, seeking you shall find, knocking it shall be opened unto you. So the refuge or the salvation or the help that you need, you may have to seek it. It's somewhere out there. It may be in a song. It may be at the church. It's somewhere, it may be in a book. But just go and seek it. And I know sometimes the pain is so great and it can be so unbearable. But, you know, if you believe in God, I'm asking you to call on your God and he will deliver you because he promised that he would. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. So faith is a substance. But sometimes when you lose the substance of faith, then you become a victim of substance abuse. So I'm asking, as Jesus said, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, be ye removed. And the mountain could be the grief, the depression, the inclination to want to take your own life. If you just have enough faith and a little hope, you can say to that mountain, be ye removed, and it'll be uprooted. So may God bless us all. May he strengthen us all. May he keep us all. I love us all. Thank you, Brother Ed, Brother Zaid, Pastor Ali, Reverend Roundtree, Sister Donna. I really love you. I appreciate you all. I pray that God blesses us all with peace, prosperity, and good health, and that he wake us up in our right frame of mind. Man, Brother Ed, give Sister Kim my love. Tell her I love her. You know, I can't wait to see you all again in person somewhere. But thank you, brothers and sisters.
Oh, he's on.
I came on really to say hi.
How you doing, Jonathan? Man, good to see you.
Your arms
Hey, I just came on to say hi. I say hi before everybody steps off.
We're having trouble trying to get Charles Barron on.
Y'all next guest is not on yet. So, I mean, y'all just talk. I mean, I'm good. I'm not trying to kick anybody off this time.
He just came to get some of that love. That's all.
Yeah, just people going out. I'm like, hey.
What's up, Brother Austin?
What's up, Brother Austin?
Y'all like the job? Y'all going somewhere debating?
No, not at all. I'm in Atlanta with mom,
beautiful,
and sister and brother and family, just chilling.
All right,
chilling in ATL.
All right, getting some of that love. What's the temperature down there?
Cold. I mean,
cold.
I went down here to get what was up there, so it was sunny out. But it was like 19 degrees. I'm like, when is it 19 degrees in Atlanta? I want my money back. They need to refund my plane ticket. I'm like, it's Atlanta and it's 19 degrees. What kind of craziness is that?
19. Well, what's the point? Is it 19 today and 60 tomorrow?
19 today and 16 tomorrow.
Oh my goodness.
And with the wind, it's supposed to be chillier than that. I'm just glad that it's no rain. Because if it was rain, all of Atlanta would have lost its mind. You see highways backed up, it'd be ice. And down south, they can't drive on the ice. They don't know how to do that.
Do they still have the underground?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we got Charles Barron says he's on StreamYard. He's in the back waiting. I don't understand what's going on. Why
he's not?
We can't bring him in.
He is not in the back. He is not here.
Tell me he's in the back of where? Tell me on the wrong street.
Did he click the? Did he click Enter Studio?
Enter Studio, right? Studio. Minister Haqq went to his meeting too.
Yeah,
Enter Studio. Yeah. I was reading Don Haynes' comments on the side.
Right. That's right.
I did not. Right, and I did not know. I did not know that. So
Principal Confelli
says
it's freezing in every state.
Yeah, right. But at Principal Confelli on the island of Jamaica is 85 degrees. Every state may be frozen, but them islands are warm.
Them islands is warm.
Ooh, yes.
All right.
Global warming is real too.
Yes.
They talking about the weather. It was supposed to be a snowing storm, a rain and snow storm yesterday. People canceled all their events for today because of what was supposed to come, and none of it came. You need to go back to Jamaica.
You could even go to. I was like, you could even go to Puerto Rico. It's 79 there. All right, cool. He's in. He's in.
Now I
There
got it.
you go.
There you
All
go.
right.
All right.
Hey,
There he
I
is.
feel so
Hello.
embarrassed. All I have
About
to do is
that fit.
scroll down and push enter studio. So,
All
Brother
right.
Dave, you had to embarrass me and said, brother, why don't you just scroll down? And
I didn't know what to do either.
Aw.
They just told me
somebody
what to
did
do.
that, man.
Donna knew.
Councilman, we all decided that we're gonna either go to Jamaica or Puerto Rico. Where you
going.
going?
Listen,
Where you gonna
you
meet us
pick
at?
it. Baby, they say I think if I leave Newark gonna disappear. But you let me know. Let me know. Sister Donna, I love you.
Love you.
Brother Ali, Baba, the courage that is on this panel, this all politics is local, Ed having the intuitiveness and the wherewithal and the courage once again, Brother Ed Riley, to bring people to the forefront that are not scared to not just speak truth to power, but to address issues that are not popular. And I believe in consistency, perseverance. I believe that, as Brother Minister Haqq stated, there's hope, there's light if you just hold on. So on top of the hold on, don't give up. Don't give up so soon. Don't
Never
just
give up.
never give up. But some people give up too soon, and then we have what we have with some of the issues we were talking about regarding mental. No, don't give up. So hold on. Just try to see your way through. Minister Abdul talked about the tribulations. We know about the trials. In life, we gonna have them. And with the oppression, with what Sister Dawn is going through, our own sister, right here next to us. How do we allow this and just have a conversation? There are ways to straighten things out, and there are ways that things can be dealt with. But as long as we allow these things to happen, they're going to keep on happening. We have to do something about the injustices and continue to speak. And listen, if we don't live and we're not around to see it, you better believe those who do wrong unto others is coming back. Karma is not an illusion. It's real. So you do unto others, it can come back to you. While we're having that conversation, that person that addressed that baby and they're addressing our children or allowing our children to be mistreated and dealt with, it's going to be handled. And Baba, it's going to be up to some of us to make sure that we go and address that issue and it's not swept under the rug anymore.
Well, you absolutely right. I mean, as we get ready, to talk with that's what the man said last week. He said that he's going to have to step out of being the man because he said, he's going to have to deal with black people and not
he's
just.
Going to still be the man. We just going to take another stance. And another, listen, I'll never stop being a preacher because even though I'm councilwoman, the first thing I remind people is, but I'm a woman of God first, and God is a God of justice. So I'm not going to allow myself to be aware of a particular thing. And I just says, oh, well, let's see who's going to handle it.
Yeah,
I'm already preparing. And I talked to Sister Dawn.
What he
about
said?
What I'm going to.
What he said, Sister Roundtree? He said, the man said last week, he said it wasn't so much of the children, it was the adult that wasn't.
That's my point.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about leadership, educated role.
You know what I mean? And that's the problem. And think about it. When y'all think about somebody like a Charles Barron, could you imagine Charles Barron being who he is and seeing black children being abused? Let me say something. Charles Barron probably would have put his foot up in their ass. You know what I mean?
I'm trying. Lord help us right now.
Because we can't allow these kids to be abused. We just can't.
So whoever's out there listening to all politics and local number one hip hop show, listen, we coming.
Well,
and
Reverend,
when we coming. You don't know how we coming.
we just got word from DJ Rhino that apparently the instructions are going down. DJ Rhino said, as we speak here, the men's meeting is going on at Central High. So
That's right.
Mayor is giving his marching orders as we speak here.
That's it.
We can trust and believe the mayor is giving some marching orders over at Central High.
Sure he is. Sure he is. And we coming and you don't know when, how, and where, but we on our way.
All right.
Thanks be to God for like I said, Brother Ed, thank you. Thank you for the platform, brother. Brother Jonathan ain't put the hand up yet. Brother Barron, to see you, God bless you. Sister Donna, we love you. And I guess Brother Pastor Ali, there's a couple of things going on coming up. There's going to be a prayer walk on December 30th. December 30th. There's a prayer walk starting at Lincoln Park to City Hall, dealing with the Emancipation 1963. That's Positive Community. We're partnering with them, the City of Newark, to do this pre-watch night prayer walk. But on the 28th of December, for 9 years, the mayor cannot make every funeral. The council people can't make every wake. And normally, victims of violence, and this is going to be what I call victims of violence, the families, sometimes because their children had trauma and did some things that were not acceptable, the families don't get the love. You got some good grandmothers and mothers out there that raised some children that went astray. But when their children go astray, we almost turn our back. I don't say we. Sometimes there's been situations where the backs have been turned on their families. So once a year, we hold a prayer memorial uplifting event at some house of worship. And on this year, it'll be December 28th. We normally do it in the beginning of the year. December 28th, it'll be a prayer memorial for families of victims of violence. And we present them each with a gift, those who show, in memory of their loved one. And we solicit, I want the wrong word, we invite the funeral directors that had to deal with the families to present those gifts. And the mayor presents gifts as well. Just to let them know we haven't forgotten about you or your loved one. And those that can stand, to have to go through remembering him in a positive way through this memorial service, we invite them to come to Zion Hill Baptist Church on Wednesday at 6:30. It'll be 1 hour. Next year, the 10th annual, we're going to do a dinner for those parents. But this year, myself, the mayor, Office of Violence Prevention, this year, 3 other people wanted to partner. Mothers or parents of murdered sons and daughters. Hear our cries. They all wanted to be a part this year. So they're all coming. They said, what can we bring? I said, bring the parents. Bring the families. So that we can speak to them, pray for them. Let them know that we're there for them. And what services are available. So that's pretty much it. It's the end of the year. Donna, Lord have mercy. Sister Donna, Baba, Pastor Ali, Brother Ed, we love you. DJ Rhino is where he is, and Brother Jonathan. Minister Abdul Haqq has left us, but it's been an honor to be here serving and with my little trying to get educated self. I appreciate you allowing me to not just be a participant, but to be able to learn, because I learned so much from all of you just by being allowed to be a part of this. Started out on this show as a minister, went to Reverend, now as councilwoman. But I want folks to know it's not in the title. It's in the work. It's in the care, and it's in the compassion and the concern for the people. And that I want to leave with saying, I love each and every one of you. I love the people. I pray nothing but blessings upon those who are going through. I want to do a shout out to the Trustee family. One of our colleagues transitioned. Her name was Alexis Trustee, my sister's keeper, City of Newark. We have Baraka. This young lady, heart and soul to our sisters and our young people and to our city. So I send out condolences and prayers once again to the Trustee family. And once again, pray nothing but the best for 2023, and we're gonna see what it's gonna be in 2023. But I want it to be everything God wants it to be for all of you, and that's nothing less than God's best.
All right,
Well,
then.
Brother Ed, I'm gonna say peace and love to everyone. I not gonna preach. I preach enough, but it has been a pleasure. It has been my honor to participate on All Politics Are Local. And I believe that the best is yet to come. I believe that he's able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that I can ask or think, according to the power that worketh in me. So it is my prayer that all of us work that power that's in you, that we might be helpers one to another. I believe that God is not marked. Whatsoever you sow, that's what you shall also reap. So if you, whatever
That's
you
right.
plant in somebody else's life, expect it coming back to your life. And I'm just glad to be alive. I'm glad to share peace and love to everyone. Those, whatever your holiday you share, Merry Christmas, whether it's Kwanzaa, whatever, Hanukkah, whatever you share, the dog, whatever you share, we wish you the best. And may the Lord keep you is my prayer. Till we meet again in next year, peace and love, power to the people. Later.
Yep. Love y'all,
Hanukkah,
man.
Christmas, and Kwanzaa. Yes. Yes.
Love y'all. Love y'all. All right,
We
brother
love you.
Ali.
Peace.
You did pretty good, my love. Tell Sister Kim, happy Merry Christmas, happy Hanukkah, and happy Kwanzaa. God bless you. I know y'all have another show to do. God bless you, my brother. I know we all up in your hour, and I know you have something so great to share, and we'll be listening in. God bless
Well,
you.
I'll probably be talking the same talk you're talking.
We're gonna
so
get
you
that.
won't
We're gonna
be
get that
missing
few minutes back.
I know that's
Well,
right.
the preachers, we going.
Absolutely.
All right, be blessed.
Absolutely.
All right.
Hey, take care.
Happy New
Charles.
Year, everybody.
So I'm always the bad guy. I'm always the bad guy. So I was
All
like,
right,
be,
believe
happy holidays. Happy
Same to
holidays.
you.
Baba, I love
Peace
you,
and love.
Baba.
No,
I
I'm the
love
bad
you.
guy.
Peace. Hotel.
All right, my queen. All right. Brother
Take
Charles,
care.
you just walked into the back end of an extended version of our monthly segment called The Disciples. Right? And when we couldn't see you, they went in some more. Right? And it's their last go around for the year, so they were getting it in. Well, let me just say welcome. But for everybody who does not know who this is our elected revolutionary, my comrade Charles Barron of East New York. My daughter just chimed in. My daughter keeps just said, "I love you, Charles Barron. Keep pushing Black Power." Right? She's all the way down in North Carolina, but she's still chiming in. Right? Yeah. We wanted to get with several things with your presence today, my good brothers. 3 things in particular. One, we wanted to hear your take on the election year that was 2022. We wanted a Black radical perspective on that. 2, we also want you to have a chance to talk about your book. I say if you must give during the holiday season, weaponize gifts by giving the gift of consciousness. In the book, and Charles's book is one of those gifts that we can deal with. And 3, you boldly inserted into the business of New York City Council recently a resolution calling for the end of the pathetic, imperialistic, racist, genocidal embargo against Cuba that needs to be in the garbage can of history. We want to talk about that. And ironically, the folks who are coming behind you in the next segment, one of our daughters is actually involved in the New York, New Jersey, Cuba Sea Coalition, right? And I didn't actually know that because I'm actually just meeting her for the first time in the context of doing some work with Mumia. So we got a natural transition from one conversation to the other. But first, welcome, my brother. Good to see you. Good to see you in this.
Well, it's always good to see you, my brother, and all of your folk, Brother Ed and Brother Jonathan. I appreciate the time that y'all give, and I appreciate the conversation that y'all have.
Yes, and so the year that was 2022, the year of whatever you want to call it, we can call it all kinds of things, right? What say you about how things turned out, where things are? We had House Negroes running for Senate. We got the devils in red dresses in Arizona, trying to be Trumps with bras on. we had all kind of madness going on in this particular election cycle,
and,
right?
and Brother Charles, you know, I want you to think about this while you think about that. I really want to get your take on this dude, George Santos, man. Like, how in the hell can somebody tell all them lies? And you know, if that was any black person who didn't have the right credentials, we would never be in elected office. Would never happen. So, I mean, just
yeah, Santos is in New York. That's right. So yeah, there you go. Let's so what say you, my good brother?
Well, you know, what I've done, and we've gotten to the point where some of us are not falling into that trap of letting them frame the analysis of the 2022 elections between Democrats and Republicans, between the right-wing racist crackers and some of the Democrats that not as bad as them, but are keeping us in the pits that we're in. So for me in 2022, our biggest challenge here in New York City is not some right-wing racist, you know, conservative. It's the blacks in the Democratic Party. And they get away with a lot of stuff because they're attacking Trump, they're attacking the extreme right, they're attacking, you know, white supremacy, even though that doesn't exist. It's only in the minds of some sick people. And so they get away, people like a Hakeem Jeffries and people like others who are rising to bishops, Kamala Harris, and then telling all black people we got to go with Biden so we can stop Trump. We don't have to start Biden doing anything, just stop Trump. So that kind of politics, I think, is keeping us from growing to the level that we need to grow and have more black, independent, radical politics rising to the surface. It's happening in places across the country. So, like, take New York, for instance. We got a Mayor Cop Adams, who's a Republican mayor, really, and he brought back Giuliani's police crime unit. He cut $400 million from education and gave $11.2 billion to the police. He's blaming all crime on bail reform that says that for those who are pretrial detainees on Rikers Island, if they committed nonviolent misdemeanors, they should be released in their own recognizance. He's lying to the public and saying that's causing crime to go up, when in fact what's causing crime to go up is poverty and unemployment and mental health money that he did not adequately fund. So we got to look out for black neo-colonial puppets of the Democratic Party in New York. I don't know what's happening in Jersey, but I know in New York.
We got some too.
Okay. I know in New York, we have a black attorney general, a black head of the assembly, a black head of the Senate. We have a black public advocate. We have a black mayor. We have a black speaker of the city council. We have a black police commissioner. We have a black education chancellor. We have several black borough presidents. We got black district attorneys in 3 or 4 districts. We got blacks heading the most powerful unions in the city. And we have more black poverty, more black unemployment, more black homelessness, more black crime than we've had in a long time. And this is with all of these blacks in New York State, and it's a $220 billion state budget and a $104 billion city budget connected, that's the expense budget, connected to a $95 billion capital budget. How the hell do we have all of this pain and poverty with all these black faces in these high places? Is because these are neo-colonial puppets of the Democratic Party passing development projects that are gentrifying our neighborhoods. Whites aren't passing that. The way our neighborhoods get gentrified is the black politician signs off on the housing development or lack of development. That's not what's called it. Ain't the whites doing that. So this is what we face. So 2022, matter of fact, across the country, they said there was no red wave. In New York, it was a red wave. There's 4 Republicans that won congressional seats. There's some Republicans that won state assembly seats. So the New York politicians, even though Hakeem Jeffries was promoted to all of that up there, in his own district is gentrified. And he and others that he's very, very close to, the Rotnese Bouchat, who's the black woman who's head of the Democratic Party in Brooklyn, still a puppet for Frank Seddio, who was the former white boss. So all of this black faces in high places doesn't mean black power, doesn't even mean black progress, but we allow these blacks to just talk against the right wing or the extreme races, and anybody looks good talking against Donald Trump. Anybody could look good talking against some of the racist folk that's in this country. The other thing that they never do, they never talk about the symptom of our deeply rooted problem. They never talk about the causes, the root causes of it. They talk about the symptomology. Let me reverse that. Always the symptomology. So they'll talk about racism because that's what everybody can relate to. Even racists talk against racism nowadays. So if you talk just about racism and you're not talking about the actual system of colonial capitalism and not talking about that being radically changed and not making some moves to make that happen, we're just going in circles. So it's easy to say I'm fighting because we don't have enough black politicians. Now we got a bunch. We don't have enough black people on Wall Street. Got some now. We need more black police. Some of them beat us up worse than the white boys. So, you know, it's this black thing that's being co-opted by the neo-colonial, neoliberal puppets of the Democratic Party, and they're espousing the same policies. Martin Luther King said that these manufactured leaders of the Democratic Party are angering the black masses. He called them manufactured leaders, and he called for a radical systemic change. So we don't have too many revolutionary politicians around or that are talking about radical systemic change of the capitalist system. They want inclusion into it by saying we need more women and minority contracts. And instead of saying we need to be the main developer and do it differently and support community land trusts and support worker cooperatives that are more socialistic than capitalistic. And this is the problem that we're having. So as you see all of these black faces emerging and all of these conferences we having, and yet and still when you look at the grassroots black community, you don't see any major changes. We're proud to say in East New York, in my beloved East New York, in our district, we're not gentrified because my wife, Inez Barron, and myself, she was an assemblyman and then assembly member and then a council member, and I was both in both positions. We stopped gentrification. The black population in my beloved East New York increased, and so did the black and Latino population increased. So we actually have more blacks and Latinos than I had when I first came into office. We are not gentrified. Our neighborhood.
What are some of the policies that like what specifically was done? Again? Like, what are some of the things that were specifically done to prevent that? Because that seems like what you said is like, wow, right? You're like, no, we stopped it.
That's an excellent question, Brother Alston, because, you know, my colleagues make me so angry because they have the power to stop it. Remember, the City Council in New York has 51 people. 31 of them are black, brown, and, you know, people of color. So this is what happens. The City Council has the power to determine what's going to be built on city-owned land, as well as passing the budget, as well as passing, of course, municipal laws, and having oversight over agencies. So this is how you stop gentrification. We call it the Barron Plan. Me and Inez developed this. Number one, do the research, a power analysis to say who has the power to determine if this project can be built. And if it's city-owned land, the local city council member wields a lot of power and influence. They call it council deference. So if Donald Trump wanted to build Trump Towers on Alabama Avenue in my district, he has to come and see me, the Black Panther City Council member.
Yes, sir.
No, he can go to the mayor, he can go to the governor, neither one of them have the power to give him the right to build that housing on city-owned property. So when it comes to me, I will say, of course, like he told everybody on his show, you're fired. I would not give him a play at all. Unless he bribes all of my council members, the local council committee on land use is going to support whatever my decision is. And what I do is I go by the AMI, the area median income. Everybody talks about affordability, affordable housing. How do you define it? Affordable to who? As a matter of fact, you had a conference with Ron Daniels and Ras Baraka that I was at, where people from all over the country came to Newark to discuss that, gentrification. Mm-hmm. So what I always do is I tell them, put all the color pictures away. Sir, what's the AMI, the median income requirement for your 250 housing units that you're building? He'll say HUD defines affordability as 80% of New York City's AMI. Right now, New York City's area median income, which takes in Long Island and all other places, is $104,000 for a family of three. So 80% of that is $80,000 for a family of three. I'll ask him then, do you know my neighborhood AMI? He said, no. I told him this meeting is terminated. I kicked him out of my office. When you don't come to me and tell me you build an affordable housing, you don't even know the area median income of the neighborhood. Make a long story short, my neighborhood AMI is $36,000 for a family of three. So if I sign on to that project because he said 25% of the units are going to be affordable, 75% are going to be market, I'm gentrified.
That's right.
If I tell him, hell no, that ain't happening. And then he said, well, what do you want to happen? 80% is going to be for those making $25,000, $35,000, $45,000, and $55,000. 20% are going to be for those in my neighborhoods who do make 60, 70, 80, and 90. You either take that or leave it. Then he would say, well, you know, I don't know if it's not economically feasible. Bye. I said, you know it is. All you got to do is go get your welfare. He said, what do you mean by welfare? Your subsidies. See, when they get free money from the government, it's subsidies. When we get it, it's welfare. So either we all on subsidies or we all on welfare. We don't have, Inez and I, we don't have one market apartment in all of the nearly 2,000 units of housing that we passed over the 20 years we were in office. Every one of them, Black and brown people are in there, and it's affordable to the income level of our people. And then after we get the income requirement, we say, well, wait a minute, what's the rent gonna be? And you don't let them do too many studios because they want a bunch of studios so they can make money. We say, no, we have 2 families, 3 families. We don't have just one person in the house. So you cut down on the studios, and then you can get a studio apartment in my beloved East New York for $500, $600 a month. We have set-asides for the homeless and special needs housing, and a 1-bedroom for $900 to $1,100, a 2-bedroom for $1,200, a 3-bedroom for $1,400. Nowhere in New York City. In Bedford-Stuyvesant, a room is $800 a month. A studio is $2,500 a month. A 1-bedroom is $3,500. That's how we stop gentrification, by using the power we had in the city council. And they often tried to go to the speaker, to the mayor. Inez stopped Governor Cuomo's sister from coming into our neighborhood with property that they wanted to build a homeless shelter, 10 stories high, and 300 units of housing. Inez said no. The mayor de Blasio came to our office and said, I really need this. Now, when the sense of the mayor is going to come all the way to East New York to talk to some Black radicals, because he didn't have the power. We did. And so he said, well, what do you want for your neighborhood? Because I need y'all to sign off on this. We said, we don't roll like that. We don't have a price. You do 500 units of housing. 200 of those units should be for the homeless. And with rent subsidies to help them pay their rent. And you know what? He walked out of there on Friday and said, no. By Monday, the land use committee called down there and said, I don't know what y'all did, but they're doing 500 units of housing and 200 for the homeless. Come on now. Every one of the politicians could do that. They don't. They stop at 25%, 35% affordable and tell their community that's the best they can get.
That's
wow.
That needs to be clear. You hear that, Jack? You like that?
Okay, so love the answer, because the answer really is like it's a methodology. It's like clear. It's like, hey, this. You can't do this. If you don't like it, bump you. And it's a concerted effort to do that from the top down, right? Like anytime that there's it seems like that means that anytime that there is any type of housing or development that is proposed within your community, you're like, hey, it's proposed in the community, they got to do this.
Right.
You want to build, they got to do this.
For.
And
that's
so,
what we're elected for.
Right. And so when you're like, I'm looking at Newark, for example, right? Like there are a lot of developments that have been built that are like $25,000 a month, that it's exorbitant. It's clearly designed to get people from New York City. They're homes that people who are in the neighborhood cannot afford. You're saying you're saying none of that is necessary.
I'm saying, who allowed that? Wasn't no white people. I ain't trying to mess your gig up in Newark or nothing, but who allowed that to happen? Remember, I started off saying you have to do a power analysis. Who has the power to say yes to this project or no? And if you don't have the power, the next best thing that you have to use is influence. Power is the ability for you to act. We didn't even have to do any demonstrations to stop these gentrifiers because we had the power. And the city council could have overpowered us, but it just doesn't happen. They defer to the local council member. That subcommittee, sometimes it's a zoning change they got to make. Like in a lot of our areas, you have a zoning limit. Like a building can't go above 6 stories. So if they want to go up 10, 12 stories, they have to rezone. That's right. That's a council power. So if they come to
we had a recent struggle over that here.
Say it again.
We had a recent struggle over that here.
Yeah, but the council, once again, you do your power analysis. Who has the power to say, yes, you can go up 15, 20 stories, or no? I know in New York City, if it's city-owned property, it's the council. Matter of fact, even when it isn't city-owned property and it's privately owned, we had this sister, Christian Richardson Jordan, the New Harlem councilwoman. Could you believe this? These two developers wanted to do 37 stories on 145th Street. 75% of all of the thousands of apartments in there were market.
Right.
And they got Al Sharpton to say this is a good idea because he was getting some space for his National Action Network, and he wanted to build the Civil Rights Museum. The hell with the community, 37 stories. But Sharpton didn't have the power. Sharpton called up and dealt with the Speaker of the City Council. She didn't have the power. Talked to the mayor, Mayor Cop Adams. He didn't have the power. So they got all on this sister, the developer, putting pressure on her. So she was the first term in. So she called me up. I sat with her and the developers. This arrogant white boy said to her, because I told her, don't go in there just saying what you don't want. Tell them what you do want. So she went in there and she said, look, we can't do 37 stories. Next to it is a 17-story development. So you can go up 17 stories and you can't have 75% market. It has to be 80% affordable according to the income level of the Harlem people of Harlem, which is 60 to 40% of the AMI. You know what he said to her? You must be kidding. You tell me, how are you going to make that economically feasible? I said, excuse me, sister, you mind if I cut in? I said, you shut the hell up and don't say another damn word this meeting. How dare you talk to a black woman like that? Don't you ever talk to her like that, ever. She don't have to make anything economically feasible for you. That's not our job. Our job is to make it affordable for our people. Y'all told his lawyer and other developers, he has to shut up for the rest of the meeting. He did not say another word. Sharpton and them thought that they would overdo the council member. I told her, now let's go to the zoning committee, meet with the chair and the 7 members, and they said they would support us. We then went to the chair of land use, which about 21 people. He said he would support us, saying no. That thing wasn't built. Sharpton, the governor, the mayor, it was not built because they didn't have the power.
Is that sister still around?
Now, what they're trying to do with her now, because the Democratic Party and all this little black puppets, they couldn't control her, because her and I was the only 2 that voted no for the black speaker, Adrian Adams. We called the 2 Adams and their budget the Adams family budget, because it sure ain't for our families. We didn't vote for her. All these other socialists and all of that DSA, they all voted for her. She's Wall Street, like Adams is Wall Street. Look at the money. And now they're trying to get her out. The Democratic Party is running candidates against her. So I'm going to support her 100%. She's just in, she's vulnerable. Because, when the Democratic Party goes against you, as they have done me, you better get down with the grassroots people, because the unions ain't going to support you. You have to raise your own money, and you have to get on the ballot, because they'll get their lawyers to knock you off the ballot. Inez and I were able to beat them so badly that now some of the unions are supporting us and some aren't. I mean, we even have unions that we supported over the years, and they go against us because the bosses at top said, you got to stop the Barrons. We've been in it for over 20 years. We have never lost the city council or state assembly race after 2001 when we've been in office. Inez just stepped out. She wants to be Grandma Inez now, Grammy. So she's not doing no more electoral politics. So the machine got the assembly seat back, but we got a young man that's working to get that as well. And I'm still in the state assembly. I mean, the city council.
City council. And let me transition now. And that was loaded. That was a class, right? That was a class and class struggle. It was a class in black power, right? And I hope folks understood that, right? For real. And for any Harlem listeners, you need to rally around that sister,
that's
right? As she comes up for re-election. And we got listeners from all over, right? So that I understand what you just got it. Now you did something bold a minute ago, and then this young lady that just joined the show is connected to what you did recently, but we want to lift that up too, because it's also important to lift up, because solidarity matters, right? A minute ago, you pushed out a resolution for the city council to support the ending of that backwards, barbaric, 60-year embargo against Cuba. Tell us how that happened, where that stands, and how can folks support that? And then
it started with Sister Rosemary Mealy. When my wife was the city council member, they developed the resolution. And now that I came in, we are pushing the resolution further. We got 18 members to sign on to it. We invited the deputy representative from the Cuban mission to come to my office, or to a conference room in our office. We had about 10 of the council members greeted him. And for the first time, we got the chair, Che Osei. He's the head of the committee that has the resolution. He held a hearing on it. So we got the hearing on it. And the next thing to do is to get them to vote it out of committee and then hit the council floor. So we want to get up to that magic number, 34. We're probably close to 20 something now. Once we get to 34, that is the veto proof number. So it's 51 of us. if the mayor vetoes a council bill, we got 34, we can override his veto. So once you get 34, it's law. So that's where we are now. And our people got to get them to understand that Cuba is one of the strongest supporters of African liberation. It wouldn't be no Angola without Cuba.
That's right.
And Cuba was there for us with Che Guevara and in the Congo with Patrice Lumumba. Cuba was there with Maurice Bishop in Grenada, with Michael Manley in Jamaica. Cuban doctors and technicians are all over the world. Cuban soldiers are spilling blood all over the world. Inez and I went to Cuba, and we went to the medical school, the International Medical School, and to my shock and amazement, when we got there, 2 students got up and they said, "Hi, Councilman Barron." I said, "Whoa." They were from East New York.
That's right. We've had some more go through.
Yes, a free medical education.
One of my former debaters was educated in Cuba. One of the first kids I coached went to Cuba, became a doctor, very successful, does tons of great work for communities all over the United States and actually the world. Like he travels different parts of the world, giving his medical expertise there. But definitely, I mean, and I didn't even know about the program. I mean, this is back in the 90s, right?
Yeah. There's a story to the program. Right. I got to tell a story. It's not a pleasant story, right? There was a situation where this goes back to Asada, right? These were the Whitman days when Christy Whitman was governor, right? And they tried to get Whitman tried to go to the Congressional Black Caucus to sign on this resolution to condemn Cuba holding on to Assad, and any talks go on with Cuba to normalize or end the blockade had to presuppose Assad being turned over, right? A lot of those Negroes signed on to that.
Oh yeah,
right? Signed on to that, and their defense was, "Oh, we didn't recognize the name because Whitman used Chesimard." We said we can't accept that. In fact, even our own, the late Donald Payne, I have to say that he didn't say anything. All Donald had to say, "That's Assad. We can't do that," right? And I had one of the most painful things that I had to do here in Newark is organize a rally to point that out, because we needed Elder Donald Payne's leadership on that, because Donald father knew Assata very well. Not only did he know her, but when she was on trial, right, Councilman Donald Payne, right, did a power map of what jury selection should look like in a jury of somebody's peers, right? And that study said that if Assata and Sundiata are going to be tried anywhere, the place that they should be tried in New Jersey that can give them a jury of their peers is Essex County because of its black population. So he knew Assata very well, but did not provide leadership at that particular moment. Our protest activity compelled Fidel to do this. Fidel said, "Bring them here. Bring them here." And so then a delegation, including most of the folks I'm talking about, of black congresspersons and part of their caucus, went to Cuba to see Cuba for themselves, to see the school that was at issue, and they just had to back down on that. And then they had to take the responsibility of being the clearinghouse for students applying from their communities to get to the school. Right? So education, matters. Political education matters. When our folks do wrong, you got to spank their behinds and make them do right. Right? So that's an important story to appreciate. But that school has been going on now for decades. We have a filmmaker who's right in Newark. Her name is Jennifer Wager, who did a powerful film called Dare to Dream that lifts up that school. Right? And I'm trying to figure out how to put a film festival together for my Malcolm X organization, right? So we can show films like that in the community and put them in the context of community organizing, not chasing no damn celebrities, right? Celebrities ain't gonna liberate a damn thing, right? People on the ground in the streets is what moves the needle for us to try and change our condition. So that background is important. Now, T, come on into this, right? Did Tova get on yet? I know she was having some trouble getting on.
Yeah,
right?
she's on the show.
I'm
Okay,
here.
I could see it. I just the screen was just put on my face, but Charles, I don't know if you know this young sister here. This young sister here is loaded, right?
All right.
Therese Iriate is an activist, artist, entrepreneur that has done some incredible stuff with her work, all not just around the country, right, but also in the extended family of our diaspora. Her family's from Puerto Rico and from Cuba, right? And she's got some funky stuff going on in Puerto Rico on the question of land, right? And then dealing with land cooperatively for our people in Puerto Rico, because we got a whole lot of folks that look just like this car in Puerto Rico. You did, right? But the two of them together were part of an effort that just had a mural put up for Mumia in Philly. But before we get to that, T, I want you to talk about the vigil that's happening tomorrow in support of Cuba, because that's important to lift up. And then we'll transition to our other conversation.
Thank you for having me. I'm T, or Tyrese Iriarte Medina. We are Cuba C, which is the New York, New Jersey chapter of Cuba C, will be part of a candlelight vigil tomorrow being held on the City Hall steps in New York City. This will begin at 7 p.m. I shared the flyer with Baba Zai so that he can share it with the audience. But that will be happening tomorrow evening. Hopefully the weather holds up and we're able to be out there for approximately an hour or so. But it is to stand in solidarity with our Cuban siblings and just call for the end to the blockade in Cuba. So if you can make it out, please do.
Let me take a couple steps back, because I want Charles to do several things as he winds up his part of the segment. We lifted the name Rosemary Millie was lifted up here. Rosemary Millie is dear. Is very dear to a whole lot of us. Rosemary and Charles were comrades in the Black Panther Party.
That's right.
Rosemary has been one of our leading beacons of solidarity with Cuba for decades. I was a Brigada Venceremos. I was the regional representative for the Venceremos Brigade under Rosemary's leadership for a lot of years, a long time ago. Rosemary is the author of Fidel and Malcolm, Memories of a Meeting. Right? So I want her, and she hasn't been on yet, right? I've had Sam Anderson on, her husband and our comrade, but I haven't had Rosemary on yet. But I wanted to lift up who Rosemary is. Also, Gail Walker was supposed to be on with us too. Gail, Jersey girl, right? Another Jersey girl, right? Who is now the leadership of IFCO Pastors for Peace, and IFCO Pastors for Peace has become, the leading beacon in terms of solidarity coming out of the United States towards Cuba with the U.S. Friendshipment Caravan Project, a civil disobedience solidarity gesture where medical aid and computer aid and Bibles are taken by clergy and activists to Cuba in defiance of the campaign. They don't do it with a license or with permission, and did it for quite a few years, and it made quite a difference in the lives of many Cubans, and they're very embracing of that. One of the things that Gail was doing is Gail has folks doing solidarity work in a number of cities that have also gotten resolutions passed calling for the end of this barbaric blockade. And that's how you build momentum on the ground for something to happen in the end, at another level. And, there needs to be a new conversation on any community where we're at, right? We need to be having those conversations, and now we can move the needle in our own community to help affect that, to making it happen. That thing 60 years ago, right? T, you weren't even thought of. Okay. I was a child, right? For those of us who were alive, most of us were just kids, 60 years ago, and we're still dealing with something as backwards and barbaric, and the whole world comes to Cuba, right? And the whole world has isolated the United States on how wrong that policy is. And we have to continue to do that, but we have to raise the ante here inside the states, inside the monster, as the great Jose Marti used to say, right? For that to ultimately happen. So I just wanted to use that as a way to segment that. Charles, before you go out, I want you to tell us about your book.
Oh, sure. Well, thank you so much, and I'm so honored to be on with all of you. We got to support Cuba.
Right, yes.
Countries like Cuba and Hugo Chavez and Venezuela, and years ago, Maurice Bishop in Grenada and Michael Manley in Jamaica. And we got to support revolutionary leaders around the world. When I was growing up in the Black Panther Party, all America's enemies were my friends. North Vietnam, North Korea, Kim Il-sung, Mao Tse-tung, all of Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré of Guinea.
In the world today,
all revolutionaries, and we just got to do that. So I wrote a book called Speaking Truth to Power. Oh, I don't know what side to do it on. Oh, you can get it on BarnesandNoble.com. 72 articles that I've written over the years, and I put a lot of emphasis on Black radicalism and revolutionary politics and my experiences in the City Council and the State Assembly. This is going to be a fundraiser for my organization, Operation Power. And I even have a blueprint on there on how to beat the machine, because that's what we did. We beat the Democratic Party machine. We out-lawyered them. We out-street organized them. We out-money everything. We beat the machine. So we not only have the City Council seat, but we also have the community board and all of that stuff. So Speaking Truth to Power is something that we're very, very proud of, to put a lot of stuff in there, and even on leadership.
And one of the things, like, in that book, one of the things in that book, it seems like, and the things from the conversation that you said, is that you're schooling us on real politics that many people think is boring, because you're talking about committees that nobody knows about, right? You're talking about being on boards that nobody knows about.
Right.
But it seems like what you're saying is, if you're really into Black radical politics, if you're into revolutionary politics, you have to embrace the small meeting parts of democracy in terms of forcing it to be used in ways it wasn't intended. Like, what it seems like, what's revolutionary is that you are taking the apparatus that others take for granted, that white people use all the time, that the white Republicans are using under the Trump stuff, that white Democrats use to be able to push their own agenda. You're like, if we're going to be truly Black and radical, here is a form of politics, grassroots, community, democratic, small d democratic, right? Understand the institutions of power within the community and seize them.
Yeah, you cannot ignore state power. Some people say, Charles, I don't want to get into electoral politics because I don't want to get in the system. You're already in the system, whether you're in electoral politics or not. If you're paying taxes to capitalism, you're in the system. Mr. Revolutionary, you're in the system. Sister Revolutionary, you're in the system. If you have a bank account, you're in the system. Who do you work for? You're in the system. The question is using the electoral arena as a tactic, not a panacea. We can't vote our way to liberation, but it can be a useful tactic. Not only do we get some housing stuff, I get $5 million a year to do capital projects. I renovated 6 parks in my district on Nezenai. Named one of them after Sonny Carson, Sonny Obubadikwa Carson.
That's right.
We got 3 new $80 million schools. Our children were being taught in trailers. I got on a committee and said, y'all ain't building all the new schools in the white community. Y'all got to build those in the Black community. We got 3 new $80 million schools. A new youth center built. The Prince Joshua Community Center, little boy was killed in our district. We was able to get Man Up funded. A.T. Mitchell.
Right.
To, stop the violence, cure
That's
violence.
the New York
program.
answer to the street team. For
you can get a whole lot done, but the key is to use the system and don't let it use you. The key is that you have to maintain some kind of revolutionary ideology to go with your practice. If you don't have ideology and vision with the practice, a movement without that is like flying a plane without radar. You won't know where you're landing. So we have to attach ideology to pragmatism. The biggest challenge is pragmatism versus principles. A lot of people overdo pragmatism, and they don't mention anti-capitalism or anti-imperialism once they get in the Democratic Party. They fall in line, and they'll do little things to stop racism and little things to beat up on Trump and all of that stuff. Oh, we got to get our voting rights. We do. We got to protect votes, stop voter suppression. We do, but vote for who? And vote for what? After you get that power. So, and I also want to say real quickly, we got to support the Uhuru movement. Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party, they were attacked by the FBI, raided their homes, and now they're facing indictments in January possibly. And all they were doing was building basketball courts, building homes for our people, farmers markets. They were taking on the system, and it was doing this all over. Now they're saying they're connected to Russia and some campaigns.
We had Lisa Davis on. We had
Wow.
Lisa Davis on lift that.
Yeah,
we had Lisa Davis on for that.
Hmm?
I was talking to Jonathan. We had Lisa Davis on for that. Lisa's in the movement.
Yeah, Lisa talking about that. It's incredible. So we got to support those who fight. Our only crime is fighting for freedom.
And now what's important to what he's saying is that there's some charges that some of them are still facing. Those charges should have been dropped. That hasn't happened. Right? That hasn't happened. So that's critical. There's a new development happening in Georgia. There was some protesting the building of a police campus that was specializing SWAT training and all that kind of stuff to put down our movements. Right? They're being charged as domestic terrorists by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Right. So, you know, when we say they come for you they might come for you yesterday and they'll come for me today, as we used to say back in the day. That math still applies.
That's right.
We need a united front against fascism, and that's what it looks like. It's not just voting against Trump. It's uniting when the state tries to repress us from doing what we need to do in order to move our struggle.
You'd be surprised in the electoral arena if radicals, revolutionaries, don't be afraid. I mean, I get in there. I interrupted the governor's State of the State address. He was shot. The whole state saw that. I bust up mayor's meetings. I don't vote for the speakers like you're supposed to. So I ain't getting a whole lot of legislation passed, but I can co-sponsor and get others to be the prime sponsor so we can get it through. But let me tell you something else I was able to. In the state assembly, I got the 63 members of the Black, Latino, and Asian caucus to support a letter for the parole board to get Herman Bell out, and he was released.
That's right.
The Black Liberation Army fighter. We got Seth Hayes out. He was released. And we just got Jill Montague out. I'm not saying we did it, but there was a correlation between us getting these letters and them getting out after 30 and 40 years, but it's the people really that got them out.
And working around talking to Matulu James and stuff. That's right.
Yeah. Last night I spoke to Matulu Shakur. He said to tell everybody his freedom is our victory. He said that's the people's victory. And you know, Matulu's something, man. He's one of the most selfless persons I've ever met. I said, so you know, what do you need? He said, no, you just tell the people that we need to keep fighting. You know, we need our victories. Blah, 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 blah. And he said, so how you feeling? But two powerful, simple words. He said, Charles, I'm free. I'm free. And the way he said it brought tears to my eyes. My wife and I were listening to him. He said, Charles, I'm free. It's like, whew. So we got a lot of work to do. We just need people to be based in some kind of ideology. Don't just be getting stuff. Some people said, oh, you're going to run for office. You're going to get stuff for us? No, I'm going to get you to do revolutionary, radical, systemic work. And then, secondly, we'll get stuff. I did. I got your jobs. I got your homes. I got your parks renovated. But you need to get this capitalist system off our back. It's not enough just to fight for reparations. Reparations, and they pay everybody to stay on the American plantation. It's not enough even just to fight for political prisoners. So when we get them out to be where? On the same conditions that put them in the first place. So we can't just organize around symptoms. We got to organize around the root causes of our oppression. And that's a colonial capitalist system. Last thing, beware of only fighting against racism. It's so easy. Nancy Pelosi took a knee with Kente cloth. Come on. You know, all of them, all what they did to Colin Kaepernick for taking the knee, not everybody's taking the knee. Police chiefs are taking knees, you know. So, you know, I just,
take some of their
we
knees
just gotta
away.
be radical. We can't just get stuff, even though I got a lot of stuff. Some people say, what do you mean you don't want to get stuff? I said, I got a lot. But East New York is still impoverished. It's still massive unemployment, crime, homelessness. And I got a lot of stuff because it's systemic. We can't not any elected official that's not talking against a capitalist system that's creating the poverty, and you're just dealing with the poverty, or just dealing, we need jobs, we need education. Every time you hear a campaign, what's your campaign? Oh, affordable housing, quality education. I'm gonna fight for jobs in my community, and we got to make sure that we have a seat at the table, and we got to cross the aisle so we can get some nonpartisan. You know, get the hell out of here! Come on now. We got to be revolutionary. If you're a doctor, be a revolutionary doctor. If you're a politician, be a revolutionary politician. If you're a teacher, be a revolutionary teacher, because you got to get to the root of the problem. We don't need more black teachers and to teach a Eurocentric curriculum. We got to change the curriculum.
That's right.
I'll stop there.
Decolonize education.
Right. And I was saying that and thank you. And Zaid, you were trying to segue, right? Like, because you were talking about a project. I noticed that both T and Tova have the same shirts on.
Yeah. Here's the segue. Yeah, those are our recent Mumia shirts. Here's the segue. Mutulu Shakur was released on December 16th. Right? Pushing hard for him. He's been inside for almost 38 years. Right? Denied parole more than 9 times. Right? Stage 4 bone cancer and a lot of pain. Right? A revolutionary healer who went to the People's Republic of China as we knew it then, right, with the Black Panther Party, saw what acupuncture could do. And as a revolutionary, he saw he could revolutionize healthcare as we were combating the drug trade, narcoticizing our community to take us out of the streets, right? That's what Mutulu Shakur is, right? And on the same day, we're supposed to be in court for Mumia before a judge who was on videotape talking about truth and reconciliation. Where did that come from? I'm going to tell you where it came from. On this side of the water, it came from a young radical organizer by the name of Mutulu Shakur, who was organizing a campaign to expose COINTELPRO in the late 70s, early 80s. That's the segue, right? And you know, so we're talking. Yeah, so we have been. There's been a whole lot of stuff, and I'm going to bring them in. I don't want to do all the damn talk, and I brought them on to talk, right? We've done a whole lot of stuff on our way to that hearing on the 16th to try and turn this judge around, because she was predisposed in writing and had already announced to the public, the court, and to the press that she was predisposed to dismiss Mumia's claims, and even in light of evidence that now the whole world sees that clearly this brother has been framed, right, in the worst way, and just on what has just been rediscovered recently out of the DA's office a couple of years ago, he should have been cut loose. Should have been cut loose. So Tova, T, I don't want you to just tell the story about the mural. We don't want y'all to talk about that. But see, we also created. See, one of the things that's happened, you know, on the edges of the wave of that Black Lives Matter, you know, push that came through, you know, a couple summers ago, was that there was a formation that, and it was a much younger formation, and Tova, I literally backed away from it, Tova, so younger heads could really develop that, right? And that's what lovenotfear.com is, and then Tova said in there anyway, right? And I love you for that. Okay, right? But love not PHER hip hop. It's a hip hop talk show, right? LoveNotFear.com. You want the latest intel on how we riding for Mumia? That's where to go. And we've got some loaded stuff on that page. Y'all tell us about that, and then we have this talk about this mural, because the mural was just one of those things.
I'm gonna duck out here. I got one more stop to make. But thank y'all so much, and my sisters, keep up the great work. I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. We have to have you back on.
Charles.
Right,
be in touch.
I'd love to. I got so much to share.
I would, no doubt about it. No, hell yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, all right. See you on mute. Go ahead.
Well, give thanks to Brother Charles Barron. Thank you for always educating us and keeping us abreast on what's happening in these revolutionary spaces. Always learning in the learning space, and grateful to learn from my elders. And so appreciate him sharing a lot of what he's working on and how he's pushing the movement forward. In terms of the Mumia movement and Love Not Fear, we've had a number of folks from across the country involved in this movement, from East to West Coast, Detroit. So we have comrades all over who have been pushing to demand the liberation of Mumia Abu-Jamal. I personally have been working to get him freed since 2011, where I shared thoughts about my own ideas around why he should be freed, and just pushing for this to happen sooner than later. It's been 40 years, multiple generations. He's been stripped and stolen from the community, and so we need to push hard to get our brother free. And so that's where I stand on that. And so the Mumia mural was just another aspect of solidarity that we wanted to bring into the movement, to make sure that people knew that we're here with him. We're standing beside him. And a mural is a large statement, and it's in West Philadelphia. A mural is a way to drive that message home. So that's what the goal was. And we could talk more about that as we go on with the show.
Yeah.
So, let me bring you into the conversation, because you're not a model, right? Tova comes to us with a long walk on, and in terms of her commitment to struggle, goes back to the late 60s, early 70s with her work, and recently joined the People's Organization for Progress, and in that particular framework, she has done some important work, putting herself in the thick of this particular work that we've done around Mumia. Now, Tova, I want you to lift up some of the other things that we T set up the whole question for the mural, but some other things happened on the way to court on before December 26th, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you lift those up, and of course I'll help you. I'll help you with the details as we need.
Sure. No, I mean, really, what we were struggling with, an opportunity back on October 26th, where we thought there was, we knew that we had the evidence that was uncovered in 2019, when these hidden boxes of case material from back when Mumia was first tried in 1981. And there was evidence about the bribing of jurors and the tainting of witnesses, and also the eliminating Black folks from the jury, and a whole bunch of things like that were in these boxes. And so on October 26th, there was a hearing for Mumia where we expected an opportunity to be able to set him free or get him a new trial, and the judge very disappointingly made a statement, as Baba Zaid had said, that she was likely to move to dismiss Mumia's appeal for the new trial, and just ignore all that evidence that had been brought forward. And so we had this time period between October 26th and December 16th where we really needed to make a super push to do something to change this judge's mind. And we realized one of the things, and that's how we got involved in this mural project, was that there was a whole generation in Philadelphia, in the Black community in particular, who really didn't even know who Mumia was. He'd been in jail since 1981. So, the idea of a mural came up, and it was something that, me being in Jersey, I thought, well, gee, we could work on this. We don't all have to be in Philly to support some of this. So T and I connected, and we each put in our own skill sets into getting this done. But it was part of a larger buildup where also there was a letter writing campaign where we found this video of the judge talking about justice and reconciliation.
Truth and reconciliation and social justice.
Right. The antithesis of what she stands
Getting
for.
ready to smash Mumia's last chance in court, but talking this stuff, I said, oh, hell, no. We turned it up. Go ahead, keep going, Tova.
Right. So Mumia's grandson, actually, Jamal Jr., he started launching a letter writing campaign through the Love Not Fear website, where they posted this mural of the judge saying all these things that sounded so good, but were totally contradictory to what she was doing for Mumia. And all these letters started pouring in, and we asked them to all be submitted to the website so that they could be turned into the judge together. But then on top of that, another wonderful thing happened where Mama Julia Wright, the daughter of Richard Wright, had been working for, I think, almost 2 years trying to get somebody at the UN to intervene in some way into the case. And she finally succeeded and got the United Nations Working Group on Peoples of African Descent to submit an amicus brief, that's a front of the court brief, to the judge in favor of Mumia. And that just happened like a few days before December 16th.
Epic stuff.
Yeah, that was so significant. So anyway, we wound up, we'll tell the mural story in a second, I guess. But between all those things, between the letter writing campaign, the United Nations amicus brief, and the mural and other things that people were doing, we actually got a victory on December 16th, where the judge about-faced and said, okay, we need to give Mumia's defense team access to all the other boxes that had also been hidden in this prosecutor's or the DA's basement that the defense team hadn't even seen yet. So we have 60 to 90 days to go through the defense to go through that brief.
Yeah.
Now, Jonathan, you just found the video of Judge Lucretia Clemens that we're referring to, but I sent you the video of the mural, right? Because that mural is also a big deal. Do we have time to run it? You want to run it? If you want to run it, go ahead and run it. This is structured.
Well, no. I was gonna. We have the guests on, so what I'll do is I'll post the video so that people can see it. But definitely, I would love to have. I would love to have more people. Our guests speak.
Now listen, I'm going to be organizing an event soon, so we're going to come back to this in a few weeks, right? I'm just trying to lock down the venue. We're going to definitely come back. But go ahead, make your point.
But the question I have is that the judge, everyone knew that the judge, had publicly said that, nah, I'm probably not gonna pay attention to Mumia's claim. I'm gonna kick it back. You got some time to get your arguments together. And during that time, you put a mural that the judge would see. Like it was in West Philadelphia. It was right.
Well, that was the goal. We wanted to get
the West Philadelphia by where the judge would probably go by or whatever, right? Like
indeed.
So and it was a mural of the judge talking about really positive things.
No,
right?
it's
Like
a
a
mural of Mumia.
No.
Mural of Mumia.
It's a
Oh,
mural
mural
of
of
Mumia
Mumia.
Abu Jamal in West Philadelphia. And we purposely wanted to have the mural installed prior to the December 16th date to draw momentum and visibility to the case. So
Okay.
much like Tova mentioned, there's a whole generation that is still becoming familiar and learning about Mumia's case. Obviously, he's been incarcerated for 40 years. And so we wanted to make sure that we did everything we could to, to bring some momentum to this case, but also to the community, but also to make sure that from a political education standpoint, we do have individuals who can learn more about the case, young folks, people who have been jaded, and kind of reignite that that mission and that fire to help free our brother. So that was one of the things that we thought was really important. And so the mural is 9 by 12. Right, Tova? 9 feet by 12 feet.
9 feet by 12. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
9 by 12.
yeah.
I'm thinking the post.
9 feet across, 12 feet. Yeah, and then 12 feet high. So, and we wanted to purposely and intentionally put it in West Philadelphia because we know the foot traffic there. We also know a lot of the community members. A lot of those community members have at one point or another learned something about the case, but wasn't directly involved or engaged. But the younger generation were introducing and wanted that visibility, like I said, there for people to stop, look, ask questions, and create dialogue around what's happening with this case. But again, prior to the December 16th court date.
Now, more background is important to appreciate. And T, you'll love this, of course, right?
Hold
on,
sorry.
Let me just make this so the old folks to get this, right? Philadelphia, for all of its challenges, is you got it. Is a mural city, right? One of the things that Mayor Baraka did on the art front is reclaim Newark's mural tradition, right?
Yeah.
Here's a radical expression from the ground up from an international coalition of young people who say, in this mural series, it's time we had a mural for Mumia at a cutting edge moment in a fight for his life and for his freedom. And here it is.
And bigger than that, the mural project in Philadelphia is a renowned project that has been the project has been mimicked in many cities, and they have been many cities have called on specifically the Philadelphia mural project to show them how they do it, how do we do it, and how have you been so successful in doing it. So
yeah, and we thank you for that. Yeah, thank you so much for that. But we wanted to do a guerrilla style because we thought it was important. We knew we would get some pushback or backlash from a political standpoint. We knew that there are some anti-Mumia, obviously politicians and folks there in the city.
Police
so we
and the
wanted to
police
make
unions
sure,
and the press.
police unions, FOP, etc., who would push back against it. So we wanted to go old school and get this mural installed guerrilla style. So we had, and Tova could talk about this a little more, a couple of ideas and challenges around trying to find the right wall, the right spaces for the, where we could have the visibility, but also have protection for the mural because we didn't want anybody to vandalize it. We didn't want the FOP trying to call attention to it, to destroy it or anything like that. So we wanted to make sure that, the first thing we thought about was where the location would be. And Gabriel Bryant was really instrumental in making sure that we found the exact place, the right place for this mural to go up. And it is the first Mumia mural in Philadelphia, I'm proud to say.
Now, when you're saying that you found a place where it wouldn't be harassed, right? Like, what was that? Because you said you put it up guerrilla style. So I'm assuming that you had to get permission from the place that you put it up
guerrilla
there.
Style,
yes.
Guerrilla style now.
That's
permission
right.
is a loaded word.
Right.
One art center is their fellow comrades, but they wanted a mural, and they wanted a mural that was meaningful. And so when Gabriel Bryant went out to talk to them, they were on board. They know it was an important cause. But prior to that, we had identified 3 other places and was trying to kind of figure out a way to get it up, and those just didn't work out. And they were also in West Philadelphia around 52nd and Baltimore Avenue. But one art One Arts Community Center is where you can find the mural now for anybody that would like to go out and see it. And I want to give a special shout out specifically. I want to give a special shout out specifically to Makiba Rainey, who was the artist who designed the mural. We wanted to honor Mumia's, just, you know, to get back to the conceptual framework of the mural. We wanted to honor Mumia's humanity first and foremost, in all aspects of his humanity, because a lot of the photos that we see of Mumia is when he's incarcerated, and what we wanted to do was uplift him as a community member, as a father, as a family member, and so that photo was specifically chosen so that we could incorporate that image into this on the wall and show who he is. He's a member of our community, and that we felt the need to elevate that message.
One of the
alongside saying he's been a political prisoner since 1981. So if you see the stamp, I'm hoping that you can pull up another photo of the actual mural on the wall installed,
we need more
so people can see the actual scope of the mural and the different components of the mural. So there's a stamp. It's designed like as a postcard, because that is the primary way that and letter is the primary way that folks inside communicate. So there's the stamp, the postmark rather, and the stamp. The stamp is the photo of Mumia incarcerated, obviously, but the postage stamp, or what I just call it. Yeah, there it is. The postmark itself is says political prisoner since 1981, and then there's a message from the darkness shines a light, which was actually a message that was part of another artwork for Mumia, in solidarity for Mumia. So our artists came together, Boris, Sam, and Makiba Rainey, who's also worked on. She's also worked on other political campaigns in terms of a political campaign. She's political prisoner campaigns and calling for the liberation through the arts. And as you know, as creatives, as visionaries for liberated future and revolutionaries, we come from a long tradition of employing art as a catalyst for as a catalyst for change, and shifting paradigms. And so what I wanted to do in this mural, and when we curated it, is think about those things and how can we send the most powerful message prior to this court date.
And they did that. It's right up the street from Malcolm X Park, and to the original point that he just made, and it's the essential piece for anybody trying to do political prisoner work, trying to help folks who've been victimized by the police. Right. The first thing they do is denigrate our humanity, minimize our humanity, right? Demonize our humanity, right? It is our responsibility not just to call for justice, but to lift the humanity up of the folks we're fighting for, and the folks who are affected by them being put in the clutches of the state or being victimized by the state. So this speaks squarely to that principle and that spirit. Right, and I'm so proud of what they did and the fact that they were get that off. Y'all have to understand how the depth of hostility on the side of the state on the one hand, the depth of and they try and do it in a very liberal way, right? In the press. Well, me as a journalist,
right?
In the United States of America, the one thing you don't mess with is the journalist supposed to have free speech.
Yeah.
Right? If he was, and we can't even say, we used to say if Mumia was a white journalist, this would be big news, because there's another white journalist that the United States wants to lock up for the rest of his life. So you can't even say that, because that's how far to the right this government is right now on the path to fascism. Mumia's a journalist. Journalists, as a matter of principle, I don't care what their background is, should have come out for him long ago. We've had to lobby black journalists to come out for him. I'm about to start a campaign to attack the black printed press. There is a national black coalition of independent, old school black newspapers who have yet to come out for Mumia Abu-Jamal, and they are led by a man who happens to be a former political prisoner. You can't make this stuff up.
Wait. So I, I just break it down. Don't speak vaguely. What who are you talking about? What are you talking about? What?
And you know, and you know, very disappointed in him that he hasn't done it yet. But the time has come to put some fire up on his behind. Y'all heard of Ben Chavis. Ben
Oh
Chavis is the
yes.
president of the National Network of NPA. I forget what the acronym stands
Right.
for, but that's the organization that's a network for the Black newspaper tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Ben
Mm-hmm.
Chavis, Wilmington 10. Ben did some serious time and was looking at life had there not been a movement that pushed for his release.
Yeah.
And he became head of the NAACP afterwards.
Former head of the
Was
NAACP.
was right. He became right. He was
Formerly
former
was
head of the
involved with the
NAACP.
Nation of Islam for a minute too after the Million Man March.
Right. Was part of the organization for the Million Man March, I believe.
That's
Right.
right. He played an
And then
important role.
right.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
then
so that's the background that
okay.
that this piece of art emerges, right? It's 41 years in a mural city that's supposed to be the beachhead for the birth of democracy. That's what Philadelphia is. Ain't that what they tell us in school? In their colonized education? Ain't that what they tell us? But the principle is this: our ancestors never gave up. Our political prisoners never gave up. And when we picked up the responsibility of fighting for their freedom, we don't give up. We don't give up. Don't give up. These folks, Tova and T, represent a wonderful breath of fresh air that they brought to this case when they came in, because they didn't come in empty-handed and they didn't come in with just their boots and their mouths. They came in with some skills, some history, some ideas, some networks, some you know, and with a fullness and a freshness that was just what we needed at this particular moment. So I want to salute them. I really do appreciate you two comrades. And then Tova, I talked to Tova like she's a young woman. Tova been out here probably only been out here longer than I have, but she came in and got down with these young folks. I love that shit, baby. I love that shit, right? Because that's what we got to do.
I looked up some like I know that many movements, right, like in one way or another, right, one form or another, they're about land, who controls it, what happens on it. And Charles Brown was talking about gentrification. We're talking about Philadelphia and all the things that went with that, right? And this is a side note, but to Iriate, you were involved in Puerto Rico land reclamation development. I just wanted to ask you about that. What does it mean? I actually just got back from Puerto Rico last week, and like beautiful
colony of the
beautiful,
United States,
beautiful,
by the
beautiful
way.
place. Right, beautiful, like beautiful island, man. But what is some of the work that you do there, and what does that mean? How does that connect? Because to some extent, I do believe that with many activists, the things that they do, in one way or another, connect. So what is that? What does it do, and how does it connect to the other things that you do?
I do quite a bit. I am Puerto Rican. I am, my father's Puerto Rican from Arecibo, Puerto Rico, by way of New York, by way of Louise. And my mom's from Cuba, has Cuban roots by way of Harlem, and they met here in the States. So a lot of the work that I do, that I am tied to, the movement work that I've been doing, the liberation work that I've been doing, is directly tied to my lineages, of course, and in the blockade in Cuba, and then also doing a lot of with Cuba C, my organization, and then also doing work around cooperative movements in Puerto Rico, specifically as it relates to, you know, women's cooperative movements. Now, a lot of the work that I do in Loíza and other pueblos are specifically around providing for these communities that have been affected by disaster capitalism. And Loíza, if you're not familiar with Puerto Rico, is one of the most vulnerable areas. It's primarily made up of Afro descendants. And so Black Puerto Ricans definitely have been victims of a lot of abuse and oppression, on the island. And we have, again, a corrupt government, issues around electricity because of the grid is now being controlled by a outside entity called Luma, who's a Canadian company that came in and took over a contract. It's botched basically, and the contract didn't require them to do anything really. And so we have ongoing blackouts constantly. So, the movement work is multifaceted for the most part.
So the electrical grid things we were talking about
Mhm.
is that what Naomi Klein wrote about when she's talking about
Exactly.
disaster
In
capitalism?
Battle for Paradise. Yes. Naomi Klein, author, Naomi Klein wrote about this disaster capitalism, and specifically talks about the electrical grid, um, the entity that controls our electrical grid. Which has been privatized. So I want to emphasize the fact that it's been privatized. So therefore, they control all aspects of whether or not we have electricity, and they pass on any cost to the consumer when any additional costs. So, for example, if the power is out, or there is an quote unquote explosion, which they often say, "Oh, this transformer exploded." What we also often find is that the next time your electric bill comes out, there's an increase on your electric bill, and so then you find the consumer paying for these outages and these at no fault of their own, but you're being inconvenienced, but then you're also paying for your inconvenience via your bill. So that is something that we've been calling for the end to this contract with Luma. We've been asking for, we say fuera Luma, which means, we want them to be out. We want them out of Puerto Rico, among other things happening in Puerto Rico. So there's many fights and struggles happening on the ground.
And T,
But
we just seen here in our U.S. national news that the House approved the decolonization, I believe, of Puerto Rico. Am I correct? I know we just seen some legislation that was passed in the House. Am I stating it wrong? That happened here in the U.S.?
yeah, there have been a number of different referendums that have come up. And one of the most recent, obviously, is the vote for quote unquote either statehood or self-determination for Puerto Rico. And this has been an ongoing thing. So in the House recently, there was a vote. But this is something that has been revisited many times. And so there has been no declaration, obviously, from anybody because Puerto Rico doesn't really have any representation. Let me just make that clear. In Congress, we don't vote in any. We don't vote in. We can vote in the primary, but we cannot vote in a presidential election. So going to, Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States.
Right.
And I don't want to steer too far from the topic of, why we came with the Mumia mural. So one thing I will say is that in terms of utilizing the arts as a part of this liberation movement, and it's a part of my revolutionary praxis, I also have artists from Puerto Rico come to the States to work on various projects across the diaspora, so that you have local artists from the States and from Puerto Rico in conversation. I also work with Cuban artists in order to make sure that those conversations and those dialogues are constantly happening in the realm of arts, but also in the realm of liberatory practice. So that's very important to me, and that's kind of how I tie it back. And so with this Mumia mural, obviously, Oscar Rivera Lopez was a political prisoner. So we want to bring it back full circle. That's something I want to definitely bring to this conversation, because Oscar Rivera Lopez was a political prisoner who we fought to free, and he was given clemency under the Obama administration, but there had already been done so much harm prior to his release. But that is, and there were murals put up in his honor. Jasmine Hernandez is one of those artists who actually one of those artists who actually had a mural installed in his honor. And so as we fight for the liberation of these political prisoners, I will be working with artists across the diaspora, New Yorkers, Cubans from here to Cuba, and making sure that we make sure that it's embedded in our practice. And so these things are often imbricated and they overlap across struggles.
Indeed. Good
Wow.
stuff.
So
Good
yeah,
stuff.
absolutely, right?
Good
Like,
stuff. Go ahead, Jonathan.
and no, I was going to say that we really do need to have a lot more shows on with these guests just to get further into many of these different topics, especially when you're talking about the ways in which gentrification works, the ways in which, and with Charles Barron, and then the way in which disaster capitalism works, the ways in which we
Naomi Klein has ties to Rutgers University, by the way. We need to look at bringing her on.
We've used a lot of her work for debate. She comes up a lot whenever we're talking about, like, I'm a high school debate coach, and so we give our students lots of different things to read.
Being modest.
And so, thank you, man. And so we give our kids like stuff to read and stuff to do, and look at. And Naomi Klein's work comes up a lot because it brings up these contradictions, right? That there's this, oh, we're helping, oh, we're giving money, oh, we're giving aid, oh, the private sector works more efficiently than the government sector. And when you get into the reality of it, and it's like, yo, they're just straight ripping people off and not caring. And then and it makes it even so much more difficult for people to even like be like, no, that when you see like millions of dollars going to the Puerto Rican grid, right? The grid in Puerto Rico, that money is not going to help the grid in Puerto Rico. It's going to a sham company that was approved by the government in order to, yeah. So I appreciate you talking about that, and we definitely did have another program just talking about those things. As I said before, I just got back from one of my friends got married in Puerto Rico. Just got back from there. Beautiful, beautiful island, but you're always like, well, do they have control? Do people control what goes on? What is the larger questions of economics? And
Right.
even when people try to help, is it like are the solutions that other people might come like, oh, let's increase tourism, and I'm like, what are the people who are there on the ground saying about those things, right? That might bring money into Puerto Rico, but not to the people who are there.
Yeah, we definitely can have another show about Puerto Rico alone. I didn't want to just kind of bogart the conversation specifically about Puerto Rico, but like to your question, just tie it back to the work that we're already doing here, because I do a lot of movement work also in like closing Rikers and nothing, but specifically as it relates to Puerto Rico, I wanted to highlight the fact that our infrastructure is very weak and it's crumbling by the second. In Puerto Rico, we often
consequence of colonialism and disaster capitalism.
Exactly, and neglect, and so these things are something that it is tied directly to the work that I do in Puerto Rico, specifically around the cooperatives and bringing more sustainable energy and land reclamation. So. The movement work continues in terms of trying to get that sustainability in Puerto Rico, solar panels, things like, because the only reason I had electricity after the storm is because there were solar panels on the roof, where a lot of people on the islands, over 300,000 people without power. And that's pretty much the entire island, unless you have is Casa Pueblo and other organizations who have been pushing also for having an island that has solar energy across, but they also want the consumer to pay for that, when it should be something that should be ingrained in, because we are an island, and you have sun, which is a natural resource. So you would think it would be, but also utilizing materials.
That's right.
Right. And also, but there's different types of solar panels panels that you can use that even with rain, because we do have a hurricane season, right? And climate change has directly impacted Puerto Rico on many levels, so thinking about those things, and also the carceral system in Puerto Rico, that's another thing, like, that ties back to the political prisoner. Like, we there's a lot of work to be done in Puerto Rico, and because we're such a small island, we have to work 10 times harder sometimes to get the messages out, because a lot of people in the States, in this settler colonial project, they don't know what's happening in Puerto Rico specifically until it's in the news for a natural a disaster, or some other type of abuse coming from these divided states of America. So yeah, that's something
Yeah,
that's something that
and
I do want to bring awareness to.
because
But
I
on a
think the
different
cutting edge,
show.
right, but because I think a lot of the cutting edge solutions come from the grassroots, like, and the cutting edge solutions, like all over the world, people are talking about exactly what you're talking about in terms of there has to be a way to like have bottom up and energy resources, as in like in many different countries, and many different countries on the continent of Africa, when they're like, let's not create a whole big old grid that we can't afford. We can actually have a better grid, right? If we use solar and connect through solar. And so if it goes down in one place, as long as you have the solar, you're up. But the solar can also generate energy for the rest of the community when you can. And so it's actually a more advanced grid that people have the opportunity to build in many
Yeah,
places that didn't have a grid before, going through solar and wind, etc.
exactly. And one thing I will want to also highlight really quickly, because I know we don't have much time left. Um, the Soul to Soul Freedom Project is what the cooperative that I founded and started in 2017. Um, and it's an agricultural cooperative, so yeah, I'm working with farmers across the island, um, to do this work. And there's a lot of young farmers who are learning it. Of course, there's spaces where there's intergenerational, and that's the blessing in Puerto Rico, that a lot of the work is done from intergenerational spaces. We are learning from our elders how to till this land, how to work this land, how to be in communion with the land. But the
Love
work,
that.
even in the realm of art, just real quickly, in the realm of art, I did curatorial research on Afro-Mexican women running cooperatives in Oaxaca, pescadoras, which are fisherwomen, healers, curanderas, in the coast of Oaxaca. Also, farmers who are cultivating Jamaica, which is hibiscus, sorrel, however you want to word it, depending on
Rose
where you're
hips.
from.
This is the
But
English.
these women are cultivating, have been doing this over 16, 17 years. And so I was able to interview those women, in Afro-Mexican women, so women across the Afro-Latinx diaspora, who are doing this work, not just in Puerto Rico, also Afro-Colombianas, which is another part of my curatorial research. And then also women in Costa Rica who are cacao farmers. So all of this are actually my exhibition is part of the Mexicali Biennial right now, in Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History, which you can see online, or if you are in California, December 31st is the last day for that exhibition. But that I collaborated with local photographers and was able to show that cooperative work being done in Mexico. And that curatorial work will continue for, like I said, Colombia, Venezuela, and Puerto Rico. So that's how it's all tied back together. I just wanted to bring it back full circle before I got too off topic.
No, it's cool
Oh,
because like
that's related. I know I
and
have some folks in Panama that would love that too. We'll
right, and
talk some more.
because you're an activist, a lawyer, and an academic.
I am what we call Afro-Rican revolutionary. I will say that.
Okay. I was just saying
So
that
I'm a
you're being
curator.
real
I'm an art
humble,
curator. So
right?
I focus pretty much all my attention on art. And now there's obviously aspects of my work, background, and everything, but my work is centered on art, utilizing art as a way to shift the paradigm. And that's, like I said, we come from a long tradition of that. So what I identify as definitely an art curator, an independent art curator, And so that's how I
Okay.
move, and
No,
that's
I was
the
I
work
was
of
just
that, or
saying
revolutionary art
you were
curator,
kicking a
however you
lot of
want to
stuff, and you were like running
word.
deep on layers of stuff, and I was like,
And she
okay,
brought all that to
all right,
Philly
you
for
brought a
me.
lot of different disciplines together in what you do. So
Brought
Yeah,
all of
but
that to
art
Philly for
much
me.
curation is
respect.
the primary,
Yeah,
the primary thing.
much
But like I
respect.
said, the Soul to Soul Freedom Project and other things that like I said, the closing of Rikers, being part of Cathal Center, and these other movements, it's just intrinsic to who I am. He didn't get a chance to read my whole bio or whatever, but basically it talks about the things that I've
We're
been
gonna
able
have you
to do
back.
over the years.
We're gonna
It's
have
a,
you
it's a
back.
blessing to
Good.
be able to utilize the work that you're doing, that all of us are doing, and be able to do this work from a place of love, radical love for our
Mhm. And
communities.
T, by any chance, do you have any anthropologists working with you?
No.
No, I wanted, yeah, that would be interesting just to have, because I've seen some young women more recently in our HBCUs pursuing anthropology. My daughter, my mentor's daughter, she did it, and she landed at the Brooklyn Museum, but then she did some work down in New Orleans. But I'm an artsy. I'm a person of art, and if you had an opportunity to see on Prime, this it was called Harlem, and
What's it
one
called?
of the
Say it again.
Harlem, and it was about four women, one being the anthropologist, and how she
Oh, I know what you're
how
talking
how she brought anthropology to the forefront, and just it was really interesting, and it makes me think of basically the work that you're doing. So I was just wondering, and when and just one of the people that did work around in the homicide legislation, one of the women that were at the table was an anthropologist, and she was from East Star, and so it was just a question I was wondering about.
No, that would be beautiful. I do when I go back into the curatorial research for Columbia, uh,
Hmm.
which
about. I know.
women doing cooperatives and building solar panels, solar ovens. Like, these women are doing some really dynamic, but utilizing ancestral wisdom to do these things, and that's the
That's it.
primary
That's
part
it.
of my
That's it.
my
The land
curatorial
question is so
research.
important.
Well,
Hmm.
we will definitely have to have you back. I know that we're out of time right now, but we'd like to thank all of our guests because this was a really great show. We talked about.
Let Donna ask the question though before we wrap up.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So
We
Donna,
have a ritual
you can
question.
you can ask the question of our guest. I don't think either of them have been on the show before.
Neither have. Nope. Donna, you muted. She's steady
Okay,
talking.
can you hear me now?
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So Tea and Tova, we ask a question to all of our guests that come on. This is a hip hop political show. So while we ask the political aspect of what you're working on, and we have a larger discussion about that, we don't want to leave out the hip hop. So we would like to know, what hip hop artists do you listen to that inspires you as you do the work that you do, whether it be individual or group. T, you can go first. Silence. The silence.
You muted,
Oh,
T.
gee.
You muted, T.
You have to unmute yourself.
She's
Sorry.
muted. Yeah.
Oh, Black
There
Thought
you go.
and Nas.
There you
Black
go.
Thought being the primary common too, but a lot of Black Thought. When I think about the work, I think about the messaging. I think about how I inform my revolutionary practices and my movement work. I think about people like Black Thought, who's been speaking truth to power for a long time. I think about Nas and Common. Those are three in particular that I lean on, when I'm ready to do the work.
All right. Okay.
Well,
Tova.
Common did
Well,
something for Sodom.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I have to be honest. It's this is where the generational stuff comes in.
It's all right.
I grew up in Detroit, and my heart was Motown, you know. So hip hop, I do listen to some of it, but I don't have any favorite artists. But you know, I grew up in Detroit in the era of Motown, and that's the music
So
that
who you mow with Motown?
like folks like Smokey and you know, people like that, you know.
Tova, Tova, I'm gonna give you some homework. Do go to YouTube and do and put in your search bar Smokey deaf poetry, Smokey and deaf poetry. And he
Okay.
did a nice poem on deaf poetry. So
Poetry.
do that. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Jonathan, you want to take us out? Oh, do we have the announcements? I'm sorry. We are coming.
We're
Let me
building.
say this. We are coming down. We have one more Friday, 30th, and when we have our 5th Friday, we do different things. We will surprise you next week what we will do, but we are winding up the end of the year. So for our guests, in a short, as we close out, Tia, Tova, do you have any last words as thinking this is the last words you will speak on this show? Do you have anything that you would like the community to ponder on?
Sure, I do. I just wanted to for people to look forward to. We're going to be doing a wheat pasting campaign national for Mumia, and you know, there's going to be teas lined up, some stuff going on in New York City about that, and we've got folks on the West Coast in Oakland and the San Francisco Bay Area that are going to be participating, and in Detroit. And I think Philly's trying to line up some folks as well.
We'll get some folks out here too.
Pardon?
We'll get some folks out here too.
Good deal. So yeah, that's important in terms of their 60 to 90 days for the next trial court date for Mumia, and we want to continue building the momentum. So that's why the wheat pasting campaign.
Also, go to the website and support the mobilization for Mumia. And you can purchase the shirts and Mumia's books there. And yeah,
Love,
and free Mumia.
Yeah, love not fear, PHER. Right, lovenotfear.com. Right. You'll see the press conference around the UN's amicus brief, the video on the mural, the judge's video, which he starts talking about truth and reconciliation that we're trying to hold her accountable to. All of that stuff is right there. Lovenotfear.com. January 5th is the birthday of Dr. King. We'll be marching from 2 o'clock from the Martin Luther King statue. That's People's Organization for Progress. Stay tuned, stand by, because I'll be organizing a local action in support of the upcoming case for Mumia. We mentioned Charles Barron's book, Speaking Truth to Power. I want y'all to also appreciate this book, edited by Norca, Todd Burrows, The Trial of Jamal, a biography in 25 voices. Right? And it's a very strong book that lays out the evidence that has been suppressed all these years. That's what I want to launch.
Wait. So that's not the book Todd wrote. That's a different book.
No, that's
Todd Burrows.
Todd edited the book.
Okay, that's the book that was edited by Dr. Todd Burrows.
Yeah, that's why he calls it a biography in 25 voices.
Okay,
he's written several books.
Oh yeah, we know Todd well here.
Right.
And T and Tova in the chat, I put the link for Harlem. I would love for y'all to go back when we meet up again. And from an artist's perspective, I always like how they bring to the screen and make people go and never make people think, to give people a different way to think. So try to grab that out to chat. And just we'll see everybody next week, and that's where we will have our remarks. That I know I'll have my remarks for people as we go into the new year. Jonathan.
All right. Well, that's all for this week. Have a good week. Be safe. We're gonna have you back. We want to have you back. There's a lot that we can learn. we also want to have Charles Barron back to really break down a whole segment just about what he talked about in terms of preventing gentrification. I think that the work that that all of you do is very, very interesting, and that many people can
Yeah,
learn from,
housing
because
co-op.
we don't know about the specific nuances of the movements that you're talking about. I think that those things need to be a lot more popular. So thank you.
Kwanzaa is coming up.
That's right.
Principle
All
that
right,
we've
so
been the weakest about is Ujamaa, which is the cooperative piece. We need a house. We got a housing problem. We need a housing cooperative movement, right? Folks
right,
are struggling
right,
for food and land. They got a cooperative movement on the question of land so they can feed and take care
absolutely,
of themselves. Energy
absolutely.
co-ops, all of that,
A-
right?
Absolutely, and we're going to get into all of that in the weeks to come. And these are great ending shows because it gives us a focus on the future. So
And I
until
think
next week, and
when
I
we're
was going to
right
say
at the
until next week.
intersection of all the holidays, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and Christmas. So everybody enjoy.
All right, until next week, with
Yeah.
last week of the
Happy
year. So
holidays.
happy
Happy
holidays. I
holidays.
know, Donna, you're looking forward to the fifth Friday. I know that. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thanks
You
so
don't
much.
Peace.
stop. You don't stop.